Chapter 42-28. No. I haven't had any warning signs yet. Xiaohua shook his head slightly. Just now, this humble Taoist rashly released the 3 corpsine lightning, 5 qi righteous lightning, 9 heavens divine lightning, and netherworld demonic lightning precisely because this humble Taoist wanted to attract the attention of that unknown existence. This humble Taoist wanted to use this opportunity to see if this humble Taoist would become vigilant. Moreover, in order not to disturb that existence, I didn't dare to release my divine sense, Buddhist awareness, and so on. I didn't even use my illusion breaker eye. When fellow Taoists just arrived at the Great Wasteland continent, didn't you have a big warning sign? Soul Cultivator Xiaohua reminded. Are these two the same thing? His Xiaohua slightly took a breath and somewhat woke up. Fellow Taoist means that our real warning sign isn't in the sky, but here? The distorted starry sky outside the sky is just a kind of appearance? Did I make a mistake? From what Louis said, that seems to be the case. Soul Cultivator Xiaohua sighed. Our cultivation bases are still too shallow. We've already fallen into the trap, and we still don't know it. Damn it, it's not that we're weak. It's that the enemy is too strong. Bone-honing Xiaohua shouted. Fellow Taoists, haven't you thought about it? What kind of enemy have we encountered since we left the heavenly prison? Devil Emperor, heavenly demon, great wasteland beast, and now there's an enemy that we can't even detect. This is an enemy that absolutely can't be encountered on the hidden immortal continent. Hee, isn't that so? A profound sky thundervine can entangle fellow Taoists bone-honing. If this great wasteland continent wasn't incomplete, I'm afraid it would really be difficult for us to move an inch. Phoenix Body Xiaohua laughed. His tone was not without ridicule, but bone-honing Xiaohua was still unlikely to understand, so he could only nod his head vigorously at the side. Dragon Bloodline Xiaohua said. Fellow Taoist, don't forget, Namomethria Zhang Luer's previous life also appeared here. Why did he reincarnate and cultivate again? Why did he reincarnate from here to the Dawn Rain continent? That must be, he fell here. What about his enemy? How can we be a match for an opponent who could kill Zhang Luer in his previous life? Hearing this, Xiaohua was a little sad. Thinking of Buddha Bodhi who hadn't spoken yet, he raised his head and asked, Master, what do you think? Namomethri. Subhoodie chanted a Buddhist mantra. This humble monk does not know to what extent Namomethriya has reached in this place. However, this is the upper realm. For Luer to be able to come here in his past life, he must have been at least at the Golden Body 7th transformation. The supernatural powers of the Golden Body 7th transformation are far beyond what I can imagine now. His opponent, only such a mighty being from the upper realm can make Lui feel like he's unstoppable. Bone-honing Xiaohua said hurriedly. The problem has arisen again. Dragon Bloodline Xiaohua said. Who is Namomethriya's opponent? The Buddha Lord's opponent is naturally the devil. Xiaohua also took the opportunity to speak. Little brat Emoling, do you feel anything? Dragon Vein Xiaohua said disdainfully. Xiaohua smiled apologetically and said, To be honest, big brothers, I really don't feel anything. If I did, I would have told you long ago. Soul Cultivator Xiaohua nodded and said, Little brat Emoling devoured the devil spirit of the devil formation, and his strength increased greatly. As long as it's the aura of the devil race, he can definitely sense it. Therefore this opponent. I'm afraid it's not the devil race. Moreover, if it's the devil race, I really can't think of any devil race that can beat Namomethriya into samsara. A devil race that can beat Namomethriya into samsara. How can little brat Emoling detect it? Dragon Vein Xiaohua was even more disdainful. Oh, does fellow Taoist have any other thoughts? Xiaohua asked Dragon Vein Xiaohua curiously. Dragon Vein Xiaohua said with a smile. Could it be that fellow Taoist doesn't feel it? There's no dragon race in this primordial continent, but the stone giants are divided into 2 factions. One faction worships Namomethriya's Buddha statue, and the other faction worships the dragon god statue. Although I don't know who the dragon god statue is, it's obvious that Namomethriya's opponent is the dragon god. Oh, when Jiang Hong was attacked by the lizards on the primordial continent, didn't those lizards also not dare to attack Jiang Hong? That's right. Scholarly cultivator Xiaohua added. When the Fortune Gates disciples were educating the variant beasts, they also discovered this situation. It's fine if there are no opposing races, but whenever there are opposing races, they either worship Nanwamethria's Buddha statue or a dragon statue. Oh. Xiaohua was surprised. He had a different guess in his heart, which was why he didn't connect these two statues together. Moreover, he wasn't directly involved in educating the variant beasts, so he didn't know as much as Dragon Vein Xiaohua. But that's all in the past. The green-robed Xiaohua said proudly. Now, wherever the Fortune Gates disciples go, they leave behind Taoist Zhao's statue. Maybe they won't change it now, but it won't be long before they all change to Taoist Zhao. Nonsense. Xiaohua helplessly shook his head and reprimanded. The power of faith doesn't need to be on the surface. Since the variant beasts on the primordial continent worship Nanwamethria and the dragon god, we will take their place to educate them. The merit of educating and the power of faith will belong to us. Making those superficial statues is really superfluous. Moreover, if this Zhao's guess is right, the statues left behind by the Fortune Gates disciples will soon be changed to Nanwamethria and the dragon god. It can't be right. The green-robed Xiaohua was surprised. He blinked several times but didn't know what to say. In the end, he shrugged his shoulders and mocked himself. Human nature is fickle. Teach. What does this have to do with human nature? Dragon Vein Xiaohua mocked. Now let's talk about who our opponent is. Xiaohua pondered for a moment, then raised his head and smiled wryly. If it really is that senior dragon god, what qualifications do we have to be his opponent? Whatever that senior wants to do, we'll just have to wait and see. However, I have another guess. If there is such a possibility, then perhaps we still have a way to survive. With that, Xiaohua sent a private message to Soul Cultivator Xiaohua. Xiaohua's expression was one of confusion. Eventually, Xiaohua said helplessly, "This humble Taoist always believed that we would be able to extricate ourselves from this matter and wait for the right opportunity to arrive. Once we're done, we'll just brush our sleeves and leave. We'll be chivalrous heroes who hide our accomplishments and fame. Unfortunately, even if it's the heaven-connecting peak, since we're already here, we can't not participate. Only by fighting with all our might can we win a slim chance of survival." Variant beasts. Scholarly cultivator Xiaohua sighed. All of them are experts. We're asking a tiger for its skin. Asking a tiger for its skin is the tiger's skin. It has nothing to do with us. Green-robed Xiaohua laughed. When it comes to us, it'll be too late. Fellow Taoist Xiaohua cupped his hands and said, "It's time to fight again for our survival. I hope that all of you will work together to get through this crisis." Good, all the doppelgangers agreed. Only Buddha Bodhi's Buddhist name didn't come out. Xiaohua raised his head, looked at the location of his Naiwan palace, frowned, and then came out of his body. Xiaohua opened his eyes, his gaze slightly raised, looked around, took out the Kunlun mirror, released the ink jade qilin, and said, "Follow me to the heaven-connecting peak." "Yes, master." Please, the ink jade qilin respectfully bowed, and invited Xiaohua to sit. Xiaohua shook his head and said, "No need, today's variant beasts of the primitive continent. Besides you, the primitive 5 little ones will also be interested in coming. Let's fly together." "Many thanks, master." The ink jade qilin was very grateful, agreed, and flew beside Xiaohua. The road to the heaven-connecting peak wasn't very smooth. In addition to the eagle-like variant beast they met earlier, Xiaohua also met ox-headed stone man, 2-winged fish, fiery brocade meng, and other strange variant beasts. These variant beasts of the primitive continent were relatively strong. Even that fiery brocade meng was 30% stronger than the profound sky thunder vine. Facing these strange variant beasts, although the ink jade qilin was somewhat afraid, it still braced itself to fight. Although the ink jade qilin's methods couldn't compare to these variant beasts of the primitive continent, behind it was Xiaohua. Xiaohua's strength wasn't much stronger than the ink jade qilin's, but he had a lot of methods. Every time he was unpredictable, he could use the ink jade qilin's magic to defeat the enemy. As the ink jade qilin's admiration for Xiaohua became more and more intense, the enemy became more and more fearful. After all, variant beasts of the primitive continent, who could come to the heaven-connecting peak to compete for the mystical treasures weren't fools. As they moved forward, they also paid attention to their surroundings. Almost all of the variant beasts of the primitive continent listed Xiaohua and the Ink Jade Qilin as irresistible opponents. Not to mention Xiaohua's plan, the Ink Jade Qilin increasingly had a plan in its heart. Previously, when it was talking to Xiaohua, it had described the primitive continent as an extremely dangerous place where experts gathered. However, when it was actually experiencing the world, it discovered that what it had encountered was far different from what it knew. And at this time, the opponents it encountered were similar to what it had experienced. There were no particularly powerful opponents at all. Therefore, the Ink Jade Qilin had a trace of hope for that divine tool. Xiaohua already knew that there was something fishy about it, but he still couldn't see anything. He just followed his thoughts to deal with the provocative opponents. In this way, in a few days' time, they once again arrived in front of the heaven-connecting peak. Facing the heaven-connecting peak, Xiaohua couldn't help but open his mouth in astonishment. What kind of miracle was this? The bottom of the mountain was several thousand li in size, and the top was several hundred li in size. Its entire body was dark purple, and within this dark purple there were strange textures. The textures were like swimming fish, wantonly overflowing within an area of several tens of zhang. Moreover, every time it overflowed, there would be some indescribable fluctuations emitted. These fluctuations didn't rush out from the surface of the mountain, but rather brewed within the entire mountain, like the tranquility before the eruption of magma. Chapter 42-29. In addition to those strange textures, what shocked Xiaohua the most was the body of the Tongtian Peak. The entire Tongtian Peak pierced through the heavens and the earth. It really pierced through the earth and the sky. The highest point had already disappeared into the clouds, and could not be seen with the naked eye. Even when Xiaohua released his divine sense, he still could not see the end of the Tongtian Peak. This Tongtian Peak could really connect the heavens. It really lived up to its name. It can't be. Xiaohua cried out in shock. This Tongtian Peak. Is it really a Tongtian Peak? I'm afraid so. The Ink Jade Qilin also lowered its arrogant head in front of the unparalleled aura of the peak, and replied with fear and trepidation. This little one has never seen or heard of such a magnificent peak. No, Xiaohua explained. What this old man means is this really a peak formed by the heavens and the earth? No matter how this old man looks at it, I feel that this is the work of a great magical power. But the Ink Jade Qilin looked up at the peak that directly pierced the sky and said with some disbelief, "Who has such a great magical power? Who has the ability to move mountains and create seas, and build such a huge peak? What is the purpose of this senior building this peak?" "Who knows?" Xiaohua replied meaningfully. His gaze was once again directed towards the horizon. At this time, the horizon was different from before. Dense clouds had already covered the sky, and the scorching sun that had always protected the primitive wasteland continent was now hidden behind the clouds. A kind of colorful color sprinkled across the sky of the primitive wasteland continent, a rare auspicious sign. Xiaohua retracted his gaze from the sky and fell on the Tongtian Peak. At this time, in Xiaohua's eyes, the Tongtian Peak was not so much a mountain that was several hundred li in size, but rather a magic tool similar to the wishful staff. Xiaohua was almost certain that if his wishful staff of the 5 elements was truly refined, it would definitely be this powerful. What kind of power was that? It was comparable to all the peaks of the primitive wasteland continent. The aura that wanted to compete with the sky suppressed all the primitive beasts that came to the Tongtian Peak. Although the heavens connecting peak did not have the energy waves of a magical artifact, the indescribable vastness of it was 100 times more powerful than any energy wave. The majestic image of it was directly imprinted in the minds of all the primitive beasts. At this moment, there was another flash of brilliance on the heavens link peak. This brilliance descended from the sky and instantly fell to the ground from hundreds of thousands of feet above. At the same time, an aura that resembled a dragon's roar came from the heavens link peak. Following this inexplicable roar that directly entered one's soul, an incomparable force came from the peak and spread across the entire primitive continent. It was like a declaration, a declaration that would envelop the entire primitive wastelands. Roar just as the momentum of the heaven-connecting peak passed. A figure that was tens of thousands of feet tall appeared in the void. This figure looked like a black ape. On its huge head, 2 eyes flashed with a ferocious light. Its long arms that were tens of thousands of feet long drooped down slightly and directly reached its knees. Every single strand of hair on the beast's body was standing straight up, with bolts of lightning coiling around each strand. The moment the black ape appeared in the void, it immediately let out a long roar. A ferocious aura gushed out in all directions like a mountain torrent. Immediately after, the black ape looked at the primitive beasts in front of the Heaven's Link peak with disdain. It lifted its feet that were several times larger than ordinary mountains and stepped towards the Heaven's Link peak, as if there were stairs in the air. Woo-woo! The momentum of the Heaven's Link peak not only attracted the black ape, it also forced the primitive beasts that were hiding in the surroundings to reveal themselves. However, the momentum of the Heaven's Link peak only forced the hundreds of primitive beasts to reveal themselves, while the black ape ignited the wildfire in the hearts of the primitive beasts. Seeing the black ape stepping on the void and approaching the Heaven's Link peak, the majority of the primitive beasts couldn't suppress the restlessness in their hearts. One after another, they used their methods and flew towards the Heaven's Link peak. Seeing the primitive beasts fly up one after another, Xiaohua didn't panic at all. He put his hands behind his back and looked on coldly. He didn't make any movements at all. Master the Black Jade Qilin was clearly forced into a corner and reminded in a low voice, "We should also go, otherwise what?" Xiaohua asked indifferently. Otherwise? Wouldn't the divine weapon be snatched by them? If the divine weapon was so easy to be snatched by them, would it still be called a divine weapon? Xiaohua asked back. This the Black Jade Qilin was somewhat speechless. However, although he didn't know how to refute, his eyes were still filled with joy. Xiaohua sighed. Just as he was about to speak, he heard a joyful sound transmission from the left. "Stinky donkey, why are you here?" Xiaohua turned his head and saw the golden toad, black sky white tiger, and the other primitive 4 little beasts coming together. When they saw the Black Jade Qilin, they all smiled and flew over. "If you can come, why can't I?" Seeing the primitive 4 little beasts, the Black Jade Qilin immediately became angry and shouted as he flew over. However, the primitive 4 little beasts were still respectful and didn't dare to slight Xiaohua. They all saluted and transmitted their greetings to Xiaohua. "All of you get up." Xiaohua smiled and said to these primitive beasts that weren't bad in quality, but had been spoiled by the primitive continent, "Master, are you still not going to make a move?" The golden toad seemed to have heard the Black Jade Qilin's transmission, and hurriedly asked. The black sky white tiger also instigated. "If Master doesn't make a move now, won't you fall behind the other beasts?" "I'm not in a hurry," Xiaohua smiled and said. "I'm not interested in some divine weapon but somewhere else." "Oh, what kind of weapon does Master want? Could it be that there are weapons more powerful than divine weapons here?" The 5-colored phoenix asked puzzledly. Xiaohua thought for a moment and looked at the Black Jade Qilin. "If you want to go, you can go with them. You primitive 5 little beasts have always advanced and retreated together. Now, I don't want to restrict you." This although the Black Jade Qilin didn't understand the ways of the world, he already felt that Xiaohua was giving him a choice, just like in the imperial court. "Let's go." The black tortoise and the black tortoise had always been quiet. At this moment, they also raised their heads and looked at the black ape beast that had already rushed out 1,000 feet. They hurriedly said, "If we delay any longer, I'm afraid we won't even be able to touch its fur." Master the Black Jade Qilin still wanted to say something, but Xiaohua smiled and waved his hand. "You can go by yourself." "Yes, Master." The Black Jade Qilin smiled and said, "If this little one obtains a divine weapon, I'll definitely give it to Master." Xiaohua only smiled and didn't say anything else. Then, the Black Jade Qilin nodded at Xiaohua and followed the primitive 4 little beasts up the Tongtian peak. Seeing that the primitive 5 little beasts had left, Xiaohua released his divine sense. However, Xiaohua's divine sense could only extend for 100 or so li. He couldn't see the entire Tongtian peak in detail. Xiaohua simply urged his body to slowly circle around the Tongtian peak. His gaze fell on the Tongtian peak, and carefully looked at it. After flying for more than 1,000 li, he only saw 30% of the Tongtian peak. However, Xiaohua was aghast in his heart. Not only was there an indescribable restriction on the Tongtian peak that Xiaohua couldn't see clearly with his naked eyes and divine sense, but there was also a strange aura emitted from the Tongtian peak. This aura seemed to be suppressing all things, but also seemed to be devouring all things. In short, there was a kind of solitary feeling, which made Xiaohua feel quite disgusted. Kachacha before Xiaohua could see the entire heaven-connecting peak clearly, he saw another bolt of lightning fall from the sky. This bolt of lightning was different from the one Xiaohua had seen before. Not only was it 9-colored, it even turned into a huge ring that fell from the top of the heaven-connecting peak. Whoosh! Almost in an instant, the ring-shaped thunderbolt fell halfway up the mountain. A destructive aura swept down from the thunderbolt. Xiaohua was 100 li away from the Tongtian peak, but that aura also submerged Xiaohua. As the thunderbolt fell, countless textures appeared on the surface of the Tongtian peak. Those textures seemed to have eaten spiritual pills. Not only did they emit a dazzling brilliance, but they also collided with each other and emitted powerful fluctuations outside the Tongtian peak. Not good. Xiaohua was shocked and hurriedly urged his body to fly out of the Tongtian peak. At the same time, he looked towards the middle of the mountain. At this time, Xiaohua had just walked more than half of the Tongtian peak. As far as his eyes could see, the black jade qilin, the golden toad, and the other 4 little ones were climbing the Tongtian peak. However, seeing that the 5 little ones were flying very slowly, it seemed that there were some other restrictions on the Tongtian peak. Around the 5 little ones, there were also more than 10 strange beasts flashing with multicolored light, which decorated the Tongtian peak. At this time, the huge ring-shaped thunderbolt had already fallen above the heads of the 5 little ones. Xiaohua, who was so far away, felt the power of the thunderbolt, but the 5 little ones didn't have any reaction. Xiaohua was shocked. He looked at the other strange beasts around the 5 little ones and found that they also turned a deaf ear to the thunderbolt and were only desperately climbing. What the hell is going on? Xiaohua was a little puzzled. However, at this time he couldn't warn the black jade qilin. Just as Xiaohua was worried, the 5 little ones suddenly stopped. Then, the 5 little ones' bodies suddenly emitted a brilliance. This brilliance was the same as what Xiaohua saw in the imperial palace. It rapidly expanded, and then the brilliance of the 5 little ones connected together, forming a 5-colored halo. This halo was very eye-catching among the strange beasts in the surroundings that were somewhat panicking. At this time, the ring-shaped thunderbolt had already fallen. Rumble! The ring-shaped thunderbolt slid down the Tongtian peak. It didn't stop at all when it passed by the 5 little ones and other strange beasts. There were only some rumbling sounds that sounded like waves. After the thunderbolt passed, the 5 little ones' halo disappeared, and the brilliance around them dimmed a lot. However, it seemed that the 5 little ones weren't injured by the thunderbolt. The 5 little ones escaped a calamity, but the strange beasts around them were in a bad situation. The power of this thunderbolt was extremely great. Out of hundreds of strange beasts, 30% of them had already been killed by this layer of thunderbolt. Xiaohua saw clearly from afar that over 100 strange beasts fell along with the thunderbolt. They didn't even let out a mournful cry, let alone a corpse. Chapter 42:30. That bolt of lightning struck the ground fiercely. With a loud bang, Xiaohua's familiar impact rose from the ground and spread out in all directions. That impact passed through the place where Xiaohua was standing, and it blew away the light protecting Xiaohua's body until it became somewhat dim. Woo! As soon as the impact passed, dozens of primeval beasts soared into the sky from the surroundings of heaven-connecting peak. Each of them used their divine abilities and flew towards the peak of the mountain. These primeval beasts flew in different trajectories, and even their flying methods were different. Some directly flew up, some flew in a spiral, and some even teleported, appearing and disappearing in the sky for a while. Some primeval beasts spread their wings, some stepped on clouds, and some were like the black ape from before, stepping into the sky step by step. Of course, there were also a few sword cultivators that seemed to be humans. Their figures turned into bright lights and shot straight into the sky, wanting to overtake the black ape that stepped into the restriction first. Xiaohua still didn't move. His gaze swept past the primeval beasts that had just moved, and he thought to himself, the several hundred primeval beasts from before were similar in strength to the black jade Qilin, but these primeval beasts now are similar in strength to me. If it's just these primeval beasts, then I have a great chance of obtaining the so-called divine artifact. Unfortunately, Heaven Connecting Peak has just appeared, and no one knows what other primeval beasts are coming. Moreover, divine sense can't be used around Heaven Connecting Peak. Perhaps there are primeval beasts that are stronger than me hiding nearby. Swoosh. Right at this moment, something that looked like a bamboo shoot suddenly emerged from the ground a few hundred kilometers away from Xiaohua. After that, the bamboo shoot started to grow taller and taller towards Heaven Link Peak, and it only took a short moment for it to grow to a height of over 3 kilometers. Then, more bamboo shoots emerged from the surroundings of this bamboo shoot and followed it into the sky. Xiaohua was secretly shocked when he saw the faint lightning markings on the surface of the bamboo shoot, and the faint sparkling between the markings. He understood in his heart that this was the thunder amplification bamboo of the primitive continent. Like the dark sky thunder rattan, it was a monster that was born from lightning. If one didn't have the means to restrain it, then it was even more powerful than ordinary primeval beasts. What he didn't expect was that this wood-born monster was also interested in the divine artifact. Moreover, what happened next made Xiaohua's eyes pop out. In just a few breaths of time, he saw that near the thunder-amplifying bamboo, dozens of spiritual trees of various colors suddenly popped out. These spiritual trees were either in the shape of vines, trees, or plants, and so on. However, their spirit of wanting to compete with the heavens really scared Xiaohua. Xiaohua looked at the vines that were as sturdy as a monster and as fierce as a human, and then looked at the Tongtian peak that pierced straight into the clouds. He almost cried out involuntarily, "Motherfucker!" However, the development of the situation once again made Xiaohua blush with shame. After the time it took to finish a meal, rumble lightning once again descended from the peak. Just like before, these lightning bolts once again annihilated dozens of beasts. These plants have really gained sentience. Xiaohua was absent-minded, but at the same time, he had some understanding. Their element is wood, and their natural nemesis is metal. When the lightning strikes the plants, it can't really harm them. These plants have an advantage over the ancient beasts on the Heavens Connecting Peak. While Xiaohua was pondering, those vines were growing extremely quickly. The earliest bamboo was already close to the last flying beast. Clang when the prehistoric beast closest to the bamboo looked down. Its eyes were already filled with ferocity. It opened its mouth and spat out a beam of golden light. It was even sharper than a flying sword when it struck the bamboo. Although the bamboo was not afraid of lightning, when the beam of light landed on the bamboo, it was truly unstoppable. The bamboo that was thousands of feet long was destroyed in a few breaths of time. In fact, the light didn't even slow down. It turned into a thumb-sized crystal thread and pierced towards the center of the bamboo. Boom! The bamboo naturally had its own defensive means. Seeing that the crystal thread was about to pierce through, clusters of lightning appeared on the surface of the bamboo that wasn't destroyed. The lightning entered the bamboo and let out a low rumble, drowning the crystal thread. Not only that, but the lightning also shot out from the bamboo and pounced towards the ancient beasts in the air. Even the other bamboos in the surroundings went crazy. Every single one of them grew crazily and stabbed towards the ancient beasts' bodies. The ancient beasts seemed to have already planned this. They weren't afraid of the bamboo's attack at all. They suddenly flew horizontally and flew towards the other side of the Heavens Connecting Peak. At this moment, the difference between the ancient beasts and the ancient beasts could be distinguished. Although the bamboos stretched out and chased after the ancient beasts, after thousands of feet, the bamboos seemed to have reached their limit. After twisting for a moment, they had no choice but to give up the chase and once again stab towards the Heavens Connecting Peak. Seeing this, Xiaohua didn't delay any longer. His figure flew towards the Heavens Connecting Peak like lightning. However, after flying for only a few dozen miles, Xiaohua felt a boulder-like pressure above his head, preventing him from flying high. Moreover, as he urged his magic power, the boulder became heavier and heavier. Xiaohua naturally understood that this was the Heavens Connecting Peak's restriction. It restricted the ancient beasts outside the range of the Heavens Connecting Peak from approaching the peak. Therefore, he changed his direction and flew towards the Heavens Connecting Peak. Once again, he flew towards the sky. At this time, the boulder-like weight disappeared again. However, Xiaohua's smooth journey stopped at 100 miles, which was also where Xiaohua saw the ancient beast's body slow down. At this time, the air seemed to be filled with sludge. Not only did it entangle Xiaohua's body, it also gradually imprisoned his magic power, divine sense, and Buddhist consciousness. Xiaohua had no choice but to urge his magic power with all his might to barely maintain the momentum of flying. Boom! Another thunderous sound came from the top of the Heavens Connecting Peak. The ring of lightning once again descended. Just as Xiaohua saw before, within the Heavens Connecting Peak's restriction, Xiaohua couldn't hear the sound of the ring of lightning. Only when the lightning fell on the top of his head did Xiaohua become aware of it. However, Xiaohua naturally didn't fear this kind of lightning power. Lightning surged around his body, wanting to cleverly disperse the power of the lightning power. Unfortunately, the lightning of the Heavens Connecting Peak was really strange. When it fell into Xiaohua's lightning, it instantly swallowed the lightning. Xiaohua had no choice but to urge the golden light protecting his body to contend with this lightning. Just one layer of lightning consumed a lot of Xiaohua's magic power. Xiaohua couldn't help but continuously descend. Looking at the Heavens Connecting Peak, he pondered in his heart. After all, the Heavens Connecting Peak was extremely high. From the bottom to the top, who knew how many rings of lightning one would encounter? If one didn't have any special methods, one would inevitably end up with one's magic power exhausted. At that time, not to mention obtaining a divine tool, even one's own life would be difficult to protect. Xiaohua looked at the broken body falling down again. His gaze fell on the rattan, bamboo, and other bodies. Soon after, he faintly smiled. Not only did his body not fly up, it instead fell down like a falling stone. Wang at the same time Xiaohua was flying down. 100 li to his left, another strange desolate beast appeared from the void. This strange desolate beast's body was at least 1,000 zhang long. Its entire body was covered in hairs. The tips of these hairs emitted a blue brilliance. It looked both sharp and poisonous. Its wings, which were several hundred zhang long, were almost transparent. There were some lightning marks on them. When the wings flapped, some thunderous sounds came from these marks. The strange desolate beast's eyes were extremely large, almost covering the entire head. Moreover, these eyes didn't have any pupils. Instead, they were protruding and pitch black. Moreover, these eyes were divided by tens of thousands of fine lines. At first glance, it looked like there were tens of thousands of small eyes in the lightning with a strange expression. When Xiaohua's gaze fell on the two antennae on the strange desolate beast's head that were even longer than its body, he couldn't help but involuntarily cry out, "Damn, what a big bee!" Of course, on the strange desolate beast's tail, there was a crimson-red needle hidden in the yellow stripes that looked like a whirlpool. Wasn't this the stinger of a bee's tail? And wasn't the strange desolate beast's entire outline a bee that had expanded who knows how many times? That bee-like strange desolate beast heard Xiaohua's astonishment. Its huge eyes swept over Xiaohua, and a cool feeling that seemed to have been penetrated was born from Xiaohua's body. See, Xiaohua was startled. Seriously, don't treat a bee as a strange desolate beast. This guy's strength isn't any worse than this Zhao's. Seeing Xiaohua's figure fly to the ground, that bee-like strange desolate beast's gaze swept over. Then it no longer paid attention to him and flew to the top of Tongtian Peak. Haha, Xiaohua's figure landed. He wasn't in a hurry to do anything else. Instead, he carefully examined the part of Tongtian Peak that was inserted into the ground. He saw that Tongtian Peak was different from ordinary mountain ridges. Even the ground within several hundred li of Tongtian Peak was different from ordinary. That reddish-purple color was like a long robe. Not only did it cover Tongtian Peak, it even covered the ground. Only what made Xiaohua puzzled was that although this Tongtian Peak was tightly connected to the ground without any gaps at all, no matter if it was the mountain peak or the ground, there wasn't any fluctuation of magic power. Even the fine lines that were commonly seen in the upper realm didn't exist. Xiaohua pinched his chin, looked at the ground, and secretly pondered. That expression didn't look like a human cultivator who came to Tongtian Peak to seize a divine artifact. Even if the desolate continent is more desolate, even if it's the upper realm, it's impossible for it to have a natural mountain that directly connects heaven and earth. This is definitely the work of some existence. Damn, this kind of existence with strength. What exactly is it planning? A group of 9th level elemental energy. Oh, even if it's 10th or 11th level elemental energy, they actually want to seize a divine artifact. Isn't this just making fun of us? Chapter 42-31. Xiaohua thought for a moment, then looked at the situation around him. He knew that he had already fallen into the trap. However, the onlooker sees more clearly than the person involved. He was afraid that he would not be able to easily find the truth of the whole thing. Immediately, Xiaohua no longer thought about it. With a wave of his hand, he took out a few rattans from the space. These rattans were the sky-soaring rattans he obtained in the ink-black forest. They had been left in the space without much use. Now that he saw the appearance of the mysterious sky thunder rattans and thunder-amplifying bamboo, he immediately thought of the sky-soaring rattans. Although the sky-soaring rattans were an ordinary species, they had been separated by yin and yang in the Xiaoyu continent. Even if they did not have intelligence, they should not be worse than the mysterious sky thunder rattans in terms of growth. Xiaohua did not want to reveal too much of his strength. If he wanted to easily rush up the Tongtian Peak, he could only rely on the sky-soaring rattans. Xiaohua sprinkled the sky-soaring rattans on the ground, but the reddish-purple color was the same as the ordinary ground. There was no reaction. Soon after, Xiaohua waved his hands and struck the sky-soaring vine with a series of hand seals. Xiaohua had obtained the origin of wood, so his physical body's attribute was already inclined towards wood attribute. Thus, he was able to use wood attribute hand seals with ease. Wung the sky-soaring rattans emitted an emerald-green brilliance under the symbols. In the space of a few miles, fist-sized runes also rolled out. Under these runes, several sky-soaring rattans made a roaring sound. One of them drilled into the ground, and the other stopped in the air and shook violently. In just a short moment, Xiaohua felt the ground beneath his feet tremble, as if 10,000 horses were galloping. The sky-soaring vine that was originally swaying in the air suddenly went berserk. Woo! It let out a whistling sound. Not only did it soar into the sky, countless branches and leaves also extended from the left side of the sky-soaring vine. Good Xiaohua was overjoyed. His figure shrank slightly, and he stepped on a vine that stretched out. His figure rushed up the Tongtian Peak along with the sky-soaring rattans. Although the sky-soaring vine was not as powerful as the profound sky thunder vine and the thunder-amplifying bamboo, its growth speed was several times faster. That huge vine passed through layer upon layer of strange restrictions, growing at an incomparably fast speed. Xiaohua stepped on the vine, the wind whistling in his ears. He actually had the feeling of riding on a flying boat. Half a meal later, the sky-jumping vine caught up with a mutant that looked like a withered tree. That mutant withered tree did not attack the sky-jumping vine like the other prehistoric beasts. Instead, it waved vigorously in the air, as if it was greeting the sky-jumping vine. Unfortunately, the sky-scuttling vine turned a blind eye and continued to crazily shoot up into the sky. Boom! At this time, another ring-shaped thunderbolt fell from the sky. This thunderbolt was much more powerful than the previous one. Dozens of the several hundred prehistoric beasts were struck down by the thunderbolt. However, the strength of this batch of beasts was relatively stronger, so only a dozen or so were killed. The other beasts were still able to fly down with great difficulty. Within the thunderbolt, the mutant of the wood element had a great advantage. When the thunderbolt fell on the sky-scuttling vine, the vines of the sky-scuttling vine immediately twisted together, forming a strange posture. And all the vines gathered together, like a rune. At the place where the thunderbolt fell, the rune formed by the vines absorbed the energy of heaven and earth from the nearby space, producing even finer runes to resist the thunderbolt. The thunderbolt that could kill a 7th or 8th stage prehistoric beast was actually dodged by the sky-scuttling vine just like that. Evildoer, evildoer, Xiaohua stood on top of the vine, his whole body also emitting a similar wood element rune. His heart unconsciously trembled. Vines, withered trees, thunder-amplifying bamboo. and so on, although they can naturally avoid thunder and lightning. But this thunderbolt that can kill prehistoric beasts absolutely cannot be avoided so easily, right? How can those prehistoric beasts endure this? Could it be that in the end, the ones who can seize the divine artifact are these strange plants? Soon after, the sky-scuttling vine once again shot up several thousand li towards the Tongtian peak. But looking at the sky above, there was still no end in sight. And at this time, the time was already close to noon. Rumble, rumble when the scorching sun shone down directly, at the end of the Tongtian peak. A series of rumbling sounds suddenly came out. The entire Tongtian peak was shaking. After shaking no less than 9 times, in the sky above the Tongtian peak, 9 huge thunderbolts that were like scorching suns struck down. Damn it, the thunderballs had not yet landed. But their might was already like a gale blowing everything to bend. Xiao Hua was proficient in the art of thunder, so he had already sensed the might of these thunderballs from the might of these thunderballs. His complexion unconsciously changed. These thunderballs are simply not something that we can resist. Could it be that that existence wants to kill all the prehistoric beasts here? Xiao Hua hurriedly stomped his foot, and the sky-scuttling vine immediately stopped. The vines that had already spread for hundreds of li began to leisurely dance in the air. Ka. Fortunately, the 9 thunderballs landed halfway up the mountain, and suddenly stopped. The 9 thunderballs cracked like colored glass, and countless thunderbolts intertwined and fused together, actually condensing into a platform of thunderbolts above the heads of the prehistoric beasts. And below this platform, the black ape that had rushed up the Tongtian peak the earliest was already less than 10 li away from this platform. That black ape was stunned at first, but soon after, a wisp of thunderbolts appeared on the platform he was on. The thunderbolts struck the black ape's head with lightning speed, and the black ape's huge body trembled. Suddenly, its eyes became bloodshot, and it waved its arms in the air, pouncing towards the nearest prehistoric beast. That prehistoric beast was in the shape of a flying deer. Previously, it had already been injured by the thunderbolts. Now that it suddenly saw the black ape charging towards it, it couldn't help but panic. Multicolored light shone from its antlers, covering the space, and its 4 hooves frantically stomped out. Waves of biting cold wind whistled, bringing with them wind blades that could tear the void apart, enveloping the space within dozens of li. The smell of blood also gradually assailed the nostrils. In the midst of this gale. Roar, the black ape let out a furious roar, and landed in front of the space. Its arms suddenly smashed into the space, and after a series of whooshing sounds, blood and black light immediately appeared on the black ape's arms. Pieces of flesh were torn apart by the wind blades. Roar, roar, the black ape howled and fell into the space around it. It opened its mouth, and a crimson-black beam of light shot out, instantly splitting the space around the wind blades into 2. Cracks immediately appeared on the flying deer's antlers. The flying deer was shocked. It hurriedly flapped the wings on its back, looking like it was about to retreat. But at this moment, a furry ape arm suddenly appeared from the void above its back. Boom, the ape arm fell, and it really hit the flying deer's wings. Kacha, the wings were broken from the roots. Aowo, the flying deer howled in pain. Before it could do anything else, the ape's arm suddenly grabbed the flying deer's wings. Crack, black chi appeared on the ape's arm, and with a slight increase in strength, it actually tore off the wings. As blood splattered everywhere, the flying deer no longer had the strength to attack. Its body flickered with multicolored light as it retreated a few li, wanting to escape. Alas, the black ape had no intention of letting it go. Its figure flickered, and it appeared in front of the flying deer's head again, smashing its arms down on the flying deer's head. At this moment, the flying deer was also resisting stubbornly. It stuck out its antlers. Although the antlers were dripping with blood, they were still glowing tenaciously, wanting to fight to the death. Alas, the flying deer was already heavily injured. How could it possibly survive after crashing into the hands of the black ape that had gone berserk? Boom, with a loud bang, the huge fist came down. Not only did it extinguish the brilliance of the antlers, it even cut them off. Not only that, the fist didn't lose any momentum and landed on the flying deer's head. The flying deer's head shook a few times, and its entire body fell to the ground. Everything happened so suddenly that the nearby exotic beasts were caught off guard and hurriedly flew away. Even Xiaohua, who was mentally prepared, couldn't help but be taken aback at this moment. He didn't understand what had happened to that black ape exotic beast. The black ape exotic beast, who had already gained the upper hand, did not give up. Its body flew once again and chased after the flying deer's falling body. Its right arm suddenly pierced towards the flying deer's neck. Pfff, a pillar of blood shot out from the flying deer's body, instantly splattering several thousand feet around it. The smell of blood in the air grew even stronger. While Xiaohua was frowning slightly, the other exotic beasts didn't make any strange movements. After all, most of the fights between exotic beasts were life and death. It would be strange if the black ape only knocked the flying deer unconscious and didn't kill it. Ao, the black ape that killed the flying deer, raised its head and roared loudly. Its blood-stained arms waved crazily in the air, as if it was showing off and demonstrating its power. Oh no, it's going to be a mess. Seeing that the black ape wasn't in a hurry to fly to the platform, Xiaohua's heart thumped. He knew it was going to be bad. Sure enough, after the black ape roared, its figure flashed once more, and it pounced towards another primeval cosmos beast. That beast wasn't afraid either. It also roared and met the black ape head-on. Just like that, it began to fight with the black ape. Moreover, as more and more exotic beasts of the untainted land approached the platform, more and more exotic beasts of the untainted land joined the battle, including the 5 little beasts of the untainted land. Damn it, Xiaohua, who was already used to the selection rules of the human race, knew that this fight was the prelude to entering the Heaven's Link Peak. He cursed in his heart and didn't move forward. He only waited at the bottom of the Heaven's Link Peak for the development of the situation. Unfortunately, the tree may wish to remain calm, but the wind will not stop. Xiaohua simply did not have time to dodge. The bee-like beast that had charged into the heavens connecting peak earlier turned around and headed straight for Xiaohua's head. It was as if a huge yellow cloud was pressing down on him. However, what made Xiaohua feel strange was that although the bamboos, withered trees, and other wood-type beasts near the Heaven's Link vine were already close to the platform, they didn't make any movements. However, the bamboo's momentum was blocked by the lightning, and they couldn't advance even half an inch. Chapter 42-32. Xiaohua retracted his gaze from the distance and coldly looked at the bee-like beast. Boom! Without waiting for the bee-like beast to get close, an indescribable wave rushed over like a stormy sea and landed on Xiaohua's Naiwan palace. If it was an ordinary cultivator, they would naturally be flustered. After all, this was the innate ability of the bee-like beast, innately restraining the human race. However, in Xiaohua's eyes, this method was like child's play. Green light flashed between Xiaohua's eyebrows. One by one, green seal characters fell in the air and combined with each other. Finally, they turned into a huge green seal character and whistled in the air. Woo! A strange wind blew over. The space of several li was filled with layers of green marks. The bee-like beast's wave immediately turned into nothingness when it touched the green marks. It was simply unable to pose a threat to Xiaohua. And what made Xiaohua laugh the most was that the bee-like beast seemed to be blind in the space filled with green marks. The tentacles on its head swung around randomly. The stings on its abdomen pierced through the air, while exuding strange bee venom. This bee venom was as sweet as a dream. When Xiaohua breathed in a mouthful, an illusion immediately appeared in front of his eyes. Xiaohua was so scared that he hastily waved his sleeves to disperse the bee venom. Wang wang wang. The bee-like exotic beast was flustered for a while, but it didn't seem to have any effect. It flapped its transparent wings fiercely, and layers of lightning fell from the fine patterns on its wings. Not only that, the ring-shaped patterns around the bee-like exotic beast started trembling as well, forming illusions in the air and spreading out in all directions. It was a very strange sight. Although Xiaohua's soul technique was effective, the space began to gradually collapse in the midst of the lightning and shadow. The green marks had just faded away when the bee-like beast's figure immediately passed through the air. A stinger sharper than a spear stabbed in front of Xiaohua. Layers of illusions were born along with the sweet fragrance. Seeing the bee venom corroding the space, Xiaohua faintly smiled. He formed a seal with both hands and 2 dark green seeds appeared in his hands. The seeds expanded with the wind and blocked in front of Xiaohua like two huge vines. On the vines, there were also thumb-sized green dots. The bee-like exotic beast was stunned, as if it didn't understand why the vines had appeared. However, the stinger still shot out, and a ring of light appeared on its abdomen. When the ring of light landed on the stinger, the tip of the stinger actually became mottled with 5 colors. Explode following Xiaohua's calm command. The green dots on the vines suddenly exploded. The green dots turned into emerald green flowers, and the explosive force drove away the bee venom from the stings. It even blasted the light of the bee-like beast into pieces. A flower bud that was thousands of feet in size bloomed beautifully at the spot where the needle was. PFFF. The entire flower bud trembled where the needle landed. The trembling petals were like a beauty frowning in pain, causing one's heart to ache. The venom on the stinger fell on the flower bud, corroding the petals and even the space around the petals. Rings of spatial cracks appeared, and the gray-white pattern swallowed the petals. A moment later, a huge vortex appeared in the air. However, the bee-like exotic beast stinger had also turned pale white, and the sweet fragrance had already disappeared. Coil Xiaohua smiled faintly, like a Buddha picking flowers. He flicked his hands, and the vines under the petals danced nimbly, rolling towards the bee-like exotic beast. Huff the bee-like exotic beast was somewhat anxious. Its 2 antennae made the sound of wind and whipped towards the vines. Ka-ka-ka wherever the antennae went, the vines were split into 2 halves. Moreover, just as Xiaohua was about to use his magic power again with a frown, the antennae suddenly turned around and attacked Xiaohua from the left and right. The antennae were so swift and violent that Xiaohua, who had always wanted to use this bee-like exotic beast to practice his wood attribute magic, was absolutely caught unprepared. Squeak squeak, a teeth-numbing sound came from Xiaohua's body. Xiaohua's protective light disappeared where the tentacles fell. His body, which had been tempered thousands of times, was pierced by the tentacles. An indescribable pain drilled into Xiaohua's heart. Damn it! Why is it so powerful? Xiaohua was shocked. He never expected that while he was underestimating the bee-like exotic beast, the bee-like exotic beast was also numbing him. The bee-like exotic beast's real trump card wasn't its stinger, but the antennae above its head. The antennae didn't move at all during the previous battle. Even in Xiaohua's knowledge, he never thought that the seemingly dispensable antennae of the bee-like exotic beast would be so powerful. Xiaohua said somewhat regretfully, "This Xiao was wrong. This isn't a bee that this Xiao has seen before. This is a prehistoric exotic beast." Xiaohua roared. His figure swayed, wanting to teleport away. However, even though shadows appeared one after another, Xiaohua's figure was still in place, unable to move. Obviously, the space around Heaven's connecting peak had been sealed long ago, and he couldn't teleport. Seeing that the antennae's strength had increased sharply and were about to drill into his body, Xiaohua's body overflowed with lightning, and he wanted to borrow the lightning to fly away. "Daoist Master, don't be anxious." Suddenly, a voice came from below Xiaohua. Xiaohua lowered his head slightly and saw Devouring Heaven holding the 9-toothed rake, flying up with difficulty. It was several hundred li away from him. Xiaohua's heart warmed, but he still cursed. "Damn it, by the time you came up, the cucumber would have already turned cold." While speaking, Xiaohua had already turned into lightning and fell in the direction of Devouring Heaven. Unexpectedly, although the bee-like exotic beast's figure wasn't as fast as Xiaohua, its antennae were like maggots in tarsal bones, piercing into Xiaohua's body as he fell. Xiaohua raised his hand slightly, and the Tung Jiao shears turned into a golden light and fell. Kung Kung, 2 golden lights struck the antennae at the same time. What shocked Xiaohua even more was that the place where the golden light landed actually produced a metallic sound, and the incomparably sharp Tung Jiao shears actually couldn't cut off the antennae. In fact, not even a crack appeared. Is this still the bee that I teased? Xiaohua was really going crazy. After teasing for half a day, the one who was truly teased was actually himself. Xiaohua's figure fell rapidly. While he put away the Tung Jiao shears, he also used the seal of overturning the sea. Boom boom, the seal of overturning the sea let out a rumbling sound, and in an instant, the bee-like exotic beast was sent tumbling in the air. But even so, the antennae pierced a few inches into his body. Xiaohua was somewhat helpless. He suddenly raised his arm, tightly grasping the two antennae with both hands, and roared. Rise Weng Weng. The antennae actually let out a rumbling sound, but they were only pulled out about 2 inches, and the antennae fell again. Moreover, in this 2-inch distance, the sharp thorns on the antennae simply didn't come out of Xiaohua's flesh. Xiaohua really didn't dare to believe that this unremarkable bee-like exotic beast had such great strength on its antennae. What should I do? Xiaohua was somewhat at his wits' end. His hands tightly grasped the two antennae that were even more dangerous than a fierce snake, not knowing what to do with them. Suddenly, Xiaohua's eyes lit up, as if he had thought of something. Almost without thinking, he loosened his hands, and the fine crystalline light between his 5 fingers fell onto his arms. Whoosh! Just like a spring breeze blowing through the night, Xiaohua's arms were covered with thumb-sized petals. Even the places where he was injured by the bee-like exotic beast just now were suffused with layers of green light. Tender buds smaller than mung beans covered the entire wound, and thousands upon thousands of thin buds gushed out, wrapping around the bee-like exotic beast's antennae. The antennae originally had some extremely thin thorns, and they had already pierced deeply into Xiaohua's flesh. At this time, with the emergence of the buds, a rich life force spread between the thorns and his flesh. Not only did it block the thorns, it even hastened the rapid healing of his flesh. The thorns of the antennae left his flesh for only a moment, but the bee-like exotic beast immediately sensed that something was wrong. The roots of its antennae suddenly surged with strange fluctuations, wanting to pierce again. What Xiaohua needed was precisely this moment. Just as the buds blocked the thorns, Xiaohua's figure immediately turned into the wind, and the bee-like exotic beast's antennae fell again. The thorns pierced only the shadow of Xiaohua's figure. Damn it, damn it, damn it! As soon as Xiaohua broke free from the bee-like exotic beast's clutches, he roared 3 times in a row. He slapped his head and his true chi surged. The Heavenly Law's embodiment technique was displayed, and the wishful steel staff was also in his hand. He danced and fought with the exotic beast. Boom, 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 boom. The roaring sound was incessant in the air. The bee-like exotic beast's antennae were like soft whips, blocking Xiaohua's wishful steel staff. The battle between the man and the beast was very lively. Taoist master, I'll help you. At this time, the heaven-devouring beast rushed over, and the 9-toothed rake was lifted towards the sky and smashed down fiercely. Be careful! Xiaohua saw that the heaven-devouring beast was so reckless, and hurriedly reminded. This thing is extremely powerful. Unfortunately, Xiaohua's reminder was too late. The bee-like exotic beast's roar suddenly sounded. An invisible fluctuation suddenly overturned the heaven-devouring beast. Even the afterimage of the antennae swept past, and the heaven-devouring beast was thrown high into the sky. Xiaohua helplessly waved his hand and caught the heaven-devouring beast. He looked around and placed it on the leaves of the sky-soaring vine in the distance. The heaven-devouring beast's body was huge, and the branches and leaves of the sky-soaring vine trembled for a long time before it could support the heaven-devouring beast's body. Fight. After a moment of fighting, Xiaohua suddenly abandoned the wishful steel staff. His hands formed a seal, and the power of the stars and moon surged out like a wave. Boom! The bee-like exotic beast was immediately hit by Xiaohua's sneak attack, and its whole body flew upside down. However, the two antennae did not forget to stab Xiaohua's abdomen. I can't always fight with this thing. Xiaohua raised his eyes slightly and looked around, but did not find anything unusual. He muttered in his heart. In that case, I'll take out some means first. Unfortunately, before Xiaohua could come up with any means, he saw that behind the bee-like exotic beast's body, a bamboo suddenly protruded. This bamboo was inserted straight into the bee-like exotic beast's abdomen, and it felt like a spark from a flint. The bee-like exotic beast was shocked, and without thinking, it raised the stinger on its abdomen and stabbed at the bamboo. Chapter 42-33. Ka. With a crisp sound, the bee needle easily pierced into the bamboo. However, at this moment, golden lightning appeared on the surface of the bamboo. This lightning not only dispelled the poison on the bee needle, but also firmly imprisoned the bee needle in an instant. Weng Weng. The bee-like beast flapped its wings, and the ring-shaped yellow light around its body surged and fell on the bamboo. It tried its best to pull the bee needle out of the bamboo, but the lightning on the bamboo flickered and easily extinguished the yellow light. The two antennae of the bee-like beast moved and attacked the body of the thunder-amplifying bamboo with all its might. Boom boom. At that moment, Xiaohua moved. His golden silhouette abruptly flew out and grabbed the tentacle with its hands. Immediately after, Xiaohua's silhouette rumbled as he flew towards the peak of the sky-connecting mountain. Seeing this, the thunder-amplifying bamboo suddenly retracted towards the ground. Wu the bee-like beast let out an inexplicable cry. Its body was stretched extremely long. Finally, when the bamboo fell several thousand zhang, the bee-like beast's antennae were stretched to the limit. Pa with a light sound, a cluster of blood spurted out from the bee-like beast's abdomen. The bee needle was pulled out by the thunder-amplifying bamboo, and along with it, a large amount of blood-red organs and other things came out. The bee-like beast's body flew towards Xiaohua's golden body as its antennae retracted. Pu there was no need for Xiaohua to make a move. The withered tree not far from the thunder-amplifying bamboo suddenly stretched out its withered branches and easily pierced the bee-like beast's body. Looking at Xiaohua again, he didn't let go of his hands. He was very clear in his heart that the most precious parts of the bee-like beast's body were these two antennae. Now that he had them in his hands, how could he let go? Xiaohua opened his mouth, and with a pu sound, a sword light spurted out. It fell on the head of the bee-like beast and chopped off its head. The headless bee-like beast's body fell into the withered tree. The thunder-amplifying bamboo and other wood-type bee-like beast all stretched out their branches and tore the bee-like beast's body to pieces in a few breaths. Xiaohua shook his hands, and layers of brilliance appeared on his antennae. That brilliance flowed through the antennae and into the bee-like beast's skull. When the skull's flesh fell, the two intact antennae appeared in Xiaohua's hands. However, to Xiaohua's surprise, these two antennae were connected inside the bee-like beast's body. In other words, the two antennae they were actually one. Good Xiaohua couldn't help but laugh, and then he placed the tentacle into his space with a sweep of his mind before he said in his heart, "This thing can be refined into a spirit treasure, and it would surely possess the might of an immortal artifact when utilized." What are these things? The sky-devouring beast's trembling voice could be heard. His face was filled with terror as he watched the thunder-amplifying bamboo and the withered tree devour the bee-like beast's body. It didn't care Xiaohua. Xiaohua smiled faintly and transmitted, "What you see is naturally what it is." But the sky-devouring was tongue-tied, as if it did not know what to say. Then he was suddenly shocked and jumped out from the leaves of the sky-soaring vine, as if he was afraid of being swallowed by the sky-soaring vine. He cried out in shock, "Why didn't they kill you?" The thunder-amplifying bamboo and the withered tree had already stopped swallowing. They surrounded the sky-soaring vine and waved their branches and leaves, as if communicating with the sky-soaring vine. Xiaohua already understood. Although he wasn't a wood-type mutant, his body had just merged with the wood origin. Moreover, he had just used wood-type magic. That rich life force had already made these mutants treat him as one of them. Moreover, he was standing on the sky-soaring vine, so they couldn't distinguish him. Xiaohua naturally wouldn't explain. He smiled and replied, "Nothing else, this old man's moral quality is good." Moral quality? Xiaohua clearly didn't understand what moral quality was, but he still replied, "I understand Taoist's moral quality is too good." Yes, that's it. This old man's moral quality is too good. Xiaohua was grinning from ear to ear. He stood on the sky-soaring vine with his hands behind his back and looked at the bloody battle in the distance. "Why are you here? Are you here for that divine artifact? It seems with your strength, you can't get it at all. Why can't I come?" Xiaohua stomped. "You can come, so can Black Jade Donkey, Golden Toad, Five Color Stupid Chicken, Black and White Stinky Bastard, and Little White Stinky Cat. Why can't I come?" Insatiable greed. Xiaohua smiled. "This old man gave you a weapon. How long has it been? And you're already disdaining it. Can't I come to take a look?" Xiaohua was like a defeated rooster. His face carried a faint shame, but his neck was still very stiff. The sky-soaring peak and divine artifact are now crazily spreading in the primitive wasteland continent. If other mutant beasts can come, why can't I? Do whatever you want. Xiao Hua was a bit gloomy. He waved his hand and casually said a few words, still looking into the distance. At this moment, the fighting on the heaven's connecting peak had come to an end. Less than a tenth of the exotic beasts were left standing in the air. Their scarlet blood spilled on the heaven's connecting peak, covering its original purplish color. The bloodstains that flowed along the peak looked like tears of blood left behind by the peak, making it look rather miserable. What's more, the remains of some exotic beasts that had been smashed into pieces were hanging on the peak, swaying in the wind as if they were laughing at something. The air was filled with the smell of blood, which didn't disperse for a long time. However, where Xiao Hua stood, many wood-type mutant beasts and sky-soaring vines clustered together, as if they were united against a common enemy. No other mutant beast dared to provoke them. Xiao Hua sighed. Then his gaze fell on the primitive 5 little ones. At this moment, the 5 little ones could no longer form a battle formation. Their so-called halos had been broken, and the brilliance around them had long since dimmed. Even one of the profound sky-white tiger's wings was broken. As for the golden toad, the black and white tortoise, they were all covered in wounds of varying severity. Fortunately, they were still alive. The primitive 5 little ones were already stealing glances at the lightning platform above their heads, which had already begun to crack. Roar on the other side of sky-soaring peak, where Xiao Hua's gaze couldn't reach. There was a mournful howl. A horned horse ruthlessly stabbed its horn into the body of a huge stone-horned beast. The stone-horned beast howled and fell from the sky. Boom boom boom, the lightning platform let out a rumbling sound, and completely split open. The cracks once again turned into thunderbolts falling down. Go Xiaohua's heart stirred. He used his foot to step on the sky-soaring vine. The vine produced a whistling sound and carried Xiaohua straight to the lightning platform's previous location. Seeing the sky-soaring vine move, the thunder-amplifying bamboo and the withered tree hurriedly chased after it. As for the sky-swallowing beast, it saw clusters of branches and leaves flash before its eyes. It finally couldn't bear it anymore, and urged its body to follow the sky-soaring vine into the sky. After all, Xiaohua wasn't close to the platform. When he was still dozens of li away from the platform, the primitive 5 little ones had already crossed the platform. Sure enough, there were no more restrictions there. The primitive strange beasts safely passed through. Strange. Xiaohua had just flown past the platform with the sky-soaring vine when he suddenly felt relaxed. He couldn't help but release his divine sense. To his surprise, he discovered that his divine sense could already be used. Moreover, the previous restrictions on the sky-soaring peak seemed to have disappeared. Xiaohua urged his body to move again, and immediately teleported away. Since Xiaohua discovered something strange, the other primitive strange beasts naturally also discovered it. One by one, the strange beasts urged their bodies. Some stepped into the void, some turned into flowing light, and some used strange escape techniques. They all rushed into the sky not much slower than Xiaohua. After flying for the time it took to eat a meal, the sky above their heads became increasingly blue. The wisps of white clouds were already under their feet. However, there was still no end to the sky-soaring peak. Xiaohua's divine sense also couldn't see any divine weapons. Daoist at this moment, the sky-swallowing beast was somewhat surprised. It pointed at a place and shouted, "You quickly take a look. Is that a divine weapon?" Ah! Xiaohua was shocked. He hurriedly raised his head to look. Sure enough, on one side of the sky-soaring peak, there was something that looked like an axe hanging there. Since his divine sense couldn't see it, but it could also be seen by the naked eye, Xiaohua immediately came to a conclusion. He whispered, "Yes, that's a divine weapon." "Damn it, that's impossible." The sky-swallowing beast swallowed its saliva and shouted, "This isn't the peak of the sky-soaring peak. How can there be a divine weapon? Isn't this different from what was said in the crystal? Moreover, this weapon looks so shabby and doesn't have any aura. How can it be a divine weapon?" That's true. It was rare for Xiaohua to agree with the sky-swallowing beast's point of view. After all the magic weapons he had seen before, as long as they were slightly powerful, they would have some aura. Since this so-called axe was called a divine weapon, it should be much more powerful than a magic weapon, right? Could it be a gimmick? Xiaohua suddenly had a kind of enlightenment. However, after pondering for a moment, he raised his hand and patted his forehead. The delusion breaker Dharma eye opened. Ouch! What surprised Xiaohua was that as soon as his delusion breaker Dharma eye opened, an unusually dazzling 9-colored light immediately appeared before his eyes. This colorful light was like a steel needle piercing into his Dharma eye. Xiaohua cried out in pain and hurriedly closed his Dharma eye. A kind of terror that he had never experienced before emerged from his Dharma eye. Taoist, the sky-swallowing beast, didn't understand why Xiaohua was crying out in pain. Just as it was about to speak, divine weapon, Xiaohua groaned in a low voice. The magic power in his body was activated, and the power of his domain was crazily activated. His figure teleported to the top of the sky-soaring peak. If Xiaohua could see the divine weapon on the sky-soaring peak, how could the other exotic beasts not know? Boom, boom, boom! Huge rumbling sounds rang out one after another on the sky-soaring peak. The group of exotic beasts all released their domains. The strength of these exotic beasts who passed the selection wasn't particularly different. Therefore, when their domains collided with each other, powerful fluctuations were produced. Chi waves, splendor, and multicolored lights completely covered half of the sky-soaring peak. That powerful power formed a barrier, blocking the advance of all the exotic beasts. Chapter 42-34. Crack, crack, crack! Xiaohua's figure retreated from the void helplessly. His divine sense swept across the sky that was blocked by the chaotic fluctuations. Immediately, tens of thousands of thunderbolts appeared around his body. These thunderbolts and lightning condensed into a shuttle shape and fell towards the sky above his head. Xiaohua then activated the thunder escape technique and crashed into the tens of thousands of airwaves. Buzz, buzz, buzz! The thunderbolts fell within the fluctuations, causing the entire space to shake. Unexpectedly, Xiaohua forcibly squeezed out a gap in the turbulent fluctuations. Seeing Xiaohua's figure fly out from the gap, Roar, the seemingly most powerful black ape mutated beast, went crazy. It raised both of its arms in the air, and a pitch-black beam of light appeared between its 10 fingers. The core of the beam of light was blood red. Crack! The black ape actually tore a 10-mile-long gap in the void where the beam of light went. Although the fluctuations and chaotic aura rushed out from the void, the black ape, whose eyes were already red, didn't even look at it. Its figure turned into a beam of black light and crashed into the gap. Roar, roar! In the distant sky, a strange bird with 4 wings on its back let out a high-pitched cry. This cry didn't sound like a bird's cry, but more like a beast's cry. Immediately, the strange bird's 4 wings suddenly flashed, and a phantom soared into the sky from the top of the strange bird's head. In just a moment, it actually rushed out of the blockade and directly rushed towards the axe high up in the sky. Seeing that a strange beast rushed out of the blockade, the other strange beasts didn't dare to stay any longer. Each of them used their incomprehensible divine abilities. They either rushed into the fluctuations with their physical bodies, or turned into flowing light. There was even a strange beast that looked like an anteater that opened its mouth and began to swallow the fluctuations. As it swallowed the fluctuations, the strange beast's body also produced fluctuations. It merged with the fluctuations and the airwaves and broke through the blockade easily. When the prehistoric strange beasts moved, the thunder-amplifying bamboo, the withered tree, and the other wood-type strange beasts also hurriedly stretched towards the sky. However, at this moment, these strange wood-type strange beasts revealed their shortcomings. Under the fluctuations, many of their branches and leaves were destroyed. Even though the surface of the thunder-amplifying bamboo produced layers of lightning to resist, many bamboo joints were still broken by the airwaves. The sky-devouring beast stayed between the branches and leaves of the sky-soaring vine, and also reached the place where the fluctuations were sealed. At this moment, it seemed to have given up the idea of fighting for the divine artifact. It was somewhat dumbfounded, looking at the prehistoric strange beasts and the strange beasts using their divine abilities. It felt really ashamed of its short-sightedness. However, it was under the cover of the sky-soaring vine's branches and leaves. Those fluctuations didn't affect the sky-devouring beast. Prehistoric strange beasts that could pass the selection slaughter. How could they be ordinary beasts? Xiaohua, the black ape, and the others had only just broken out of the seal and gained the upper hand for the time being. The other beasts immediately used their other divine arts and broke out of the seal that was starting to calm down. They continued to chase after Xiaohua and the others. Even the thunder-amplifying bamboo and the other wood-type strange beasts, after withstanding the attacks of the fluctuations, once again rushed into the sky. Xiaohua's divine sense swept over, knowing that he had the upper hand. He hurriedly released his Buddhist sense, wanting to quietly put that divine artifact into the space. However, the Buddhist sense was even worse than divine sense. When it swept past the location of the axe's shadow, not only did it not see the axe, but there was also an incomparably sharp fluctuation flashing in the void, unexpectedly cutting the Buddhist sense to pieces. Xiaohua was greatly alarmed. He hurriedly withdrew his Buddhist sense, no longer daring to use other divine sense methods. He could only obediently fly high, preparing to use the simplest method to get the axe. Under the thunderclap ninth heaven, the distance of several tens of thousands of li was covered in a flash. The Tongtian peak was so quiet that it made Xiaohua feel intoxicated. Along the way, there were no more attacks or ambushes, as if everything was normal. Seeing that astral winds had already appeared in the vicinity, the blue sky had already disappeared, and the clouds had already disappeared. Layers of earth, fire, wind, and lightning faintly appeared in the grayish-white color above his head. Xiaohua knew that the Tongtian peak was really connected to the heavens. This end was already inserted into the earth, fire, wind, and lightning. However, he did not have time to sigh with emotion at the almighty method of constructing the Tongtian peak. His gaze fell on a protruding mountain rock under the earth, fire, wind, and lightning. There was precisely an axe placed there. A real axe. This axe looked ordinary, but in Xiaohua's eyes, it was incomparably stunning. The axe's entire body was grayish-black. The axe's handle and the axe's head were one. The axe's handle was strangely curved, and there were indescribable textures on it. Those textures in Xiaohua's eyes seemed to be floating clouds, and he simply could not see the true appearance under the clouds. There was also another type of textures on the axe, and these textures were divided into two layers. Although the upper layer looked grayish-black, within the textures, there was a bright blue, faintly containing the meaning of light. The lower layer of textures was different, revealing a kind of pitch black, faintly containing the demonic qi and underworld qi. And in between the two layers of textures, there was only a straight thin line. This line, from the surface, looked like a straight line without any curve, but within it, there were tens of thousands of spiral-shaped fine lines that were like whirlpools. Within these fine lines, there was actually the aura that Xiaohua was familiar with, the qi of heaven and earth, the power of the stars and moon, and other indescribable auras. What kind of axe is this? Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air, and a layer of goosebumps suddenly appeared all over his body. A kind of excitement that he had not felt for a long time appeared in his heart, and at this moment, his gaze once again fell on the edge of the axe. The edge of the axe was originally the most important part, but as far as Xiaohua's eyes could see, he could not clearly see where this edge was. This was because all of the light, all of the void, and even everything had been sliced apart by this edge. If it weren't for the axe's hilt resting on the mountain rock would have already been sliced into nothingness by the edge of the axe. Fuck, who cares what kind of trap it is? Xiaohua's eyes lit up, and he made up his mind. How can I let go of such a divine tool? This was human nature. Even though Xiaohua was a grand ascension cultivator, his Tao heart was quite firm. And even though he had already seen through the trap, greed immediately welled up in his heart at the sight of this divine tool. He had already cast his previous plans to the back of his mind, and he was completely focused on obtaining this axe. With this thought in mind, Xiaohua waved his hand, and his arm immediately transformed into a massive hand that was several hundred feet in size, which swept through the air toward the axe. At this moment, a cracking sound came from the void above Xiaohua's head. Then several thousand zhang of space collapsed. The black ape stepped out from the void, its body flashing with black-red blood light. This ape looked like Xiaohua and stretched out its arm. It smiled coldly and waved its left arm. A string of cracks appeared in the void, and a force that could tear Xiaohua's body apart pounced towards Xiaohua. Xiaohua sneered. He waved his other hand as well, and a huge fist met the black ape's attack head-on. Amidst the huge explosion, The space between Xiaohua and the black ape exploded one after another. Xiaohua borrowed the force of this attack to rush up once more. Roar! The black ape was enraged, and it let loose a wild roar as it opened its mouth to blast out a pitch-black pillar of light. This pillar of light suddenly shot through the air toward the mountain rock in the distance. The black ape's figure once again soared into the air, and it chased after Xiaohua in no time at all. Roar! Xiaohua had only flown a few more li when another beast roar came from the sky to his left. Xiaohua turned to look, and saw that it was actually the phantom of the four-winged bird. The phantom only existed for a few breaths of time before ripples appeared on it, and it transformed into the bird's body. However, the bird didn't attack Xiaohua at all. It only looked at Xiaohua with contempt. The 4 layers of wings flapped again, and another phantom soared into the sky and pounced towards the axe faster than lightning. Presumably, as long as the phantom was there, the bird's main body would also appear there. Oh no, this is bad. Xiaohua was alarmed when he saw the ancient mutant beast chasing after him. He quickly scanned the area with his divine sense, and he cried out involuntarily. This Xiao has already been overtaken by several ancient mutant beasts, and there are actually others who are faster than this Xiao in the other directions of the Tongtian Peak. I'm afraid this Xiao is going to fall behind. Thinking of this, Xiaohua raised his hand and slapped the top of his head, shouting, "Fellow Taoists, quickly come and help." As he spoke, Confucian Cultivator Xiaohua, Bone Tempering Xiaohua, Dragon Bloodline Xiaohua, Green Robe Xiaohua, Buddha Bodhi, and Devil Spirit Xiaohua all rushed out of Xiaohua's body. They didn't need Xiaohua to say anything, and they all teleported and pounced on the ancient mutant beasts in different directions, stopping them from advancing. As for Xiaohua himself, he let out a loud roar. The big hand that was originally grabbing the axe suddenly changed direction and fell toward the black ape. Xiaohua's big hand falling was really out of the black ape's expectations. Seeing the mountain boulder-like imprisonment coming at it, the black ape could only roar and wave its fists to meet it. Boom! The big hand fell and first crushed the pitch-black light pillar in the sky, and then it collided with the black ape's fists. When the big hand was destroyed, the black ape's body was also blocked, and it even fell several li. Roar! The black ape was furious and pounced toward Xiaohua. It seemed like it also wanted to kill Xiaohua first. Come on! The corners of Xiaohua's mouth curled up into a faint smile. At the same time as his figure horizontally pounced towards the black ape, a phoenix cry rang out. Xiaohua's phoenix form suddenly flew out from Xiaohua's body. With a flap of his wings, he directly pounced towards the axe in the distance like a bolt of lightning. Boom! Xiaohua's fists danced in the air as he fought against the black ape. Under Xiaohua's will, the space within a few hundred miles was set off layers upon layers of air waves. The inexplicable cracks appeared wantonly and blocked the prehistoric beasts that wanted to approach him. As for the 4-winged bird that had previously transformed into a phantom and flew high up in the sky, it was now blocked in the air by Xiaohua's devil qi. It could only watch helplessly as Xiaohua, who had a phoenix body, flew past it. As for the ancient mutant beasts in the other directions of Heaven Connecting Peak, they were naturally blocked by Confucian Cultivator Xiaohua for the time being. They couldn't get close to the axe. Seeing that phoenix body Xiaohua would be able to get the axe in a few more moments, Xiaohua displayed a divine ability to block the black ape's fury. At the same time, he was grinning from ear to ear as he thought to himself, "Your grandmother, you dare to snatch from me. If I'm not happy, I'll take out all the Fortune Gate's disciples and have them lay down a formation. Let's see who can withstand millions, no, tens of millions of humans." Chapter 42-35. However, the instant phoenix body Xiaohua approached the axe, a fist-sized lightning suddenly rolled out from the side of the mountain rock where the axe was located. Subsequently, a huge bamboo joint stretched out from the void and grabbed towards the axe. It was actually a moment earlier than phoenix body Xiaohua. Lightning amplification bamboo? What's going on? Xiaohua was slightly shocked. When did it get here? Isn't this guy still under this Xiao's body with the sky-piercing vine? However, at this time, there was already no meaning in thinking about the reason. Phoenix body Xiaohua waved his phoenix claw, and a shadow shot out like lightning, wanting to grab the axe before the lightning amplification bamboo. Kachacha at the same time the lightning amplification bamboo's bamboo joint fell. Another 100 bamboo joints grew out, blocking other directions. Phoenix body Xiao Hua's phoenix claw was shattered by the lightning amplification bamboo. Damn it! If this Xiao returns to the hidden immortal continent, and says this Xiao was defeated by a spirit wood, wouldn't people laugh their heads off? Xiao Hua was really angry and anxious. He released several great clones, and the fatty meat was already at the side of his mouth, but it was actually snatched away by a spirit wood. He really had an impulse to be flustered and exasperated. Without any suspense, the lightning amplification bamboo's bamboo joint wrapped around the axe. However, at this time, a strange change occurred again. The bamboo joint that wrapped around the axe suddenly emitted a kacha-kacha crisp sound, and the bamboo joint broke into several pieces. Even the rhythm of the shattering spread along the lightning amplification bamboo's bamboo joint, falling no less than several hundred feet. Ha! Seeing this, Xiao Hua was shocked in his heart, and then he was overjoyed. If it wasn't for him using all his strength to resist the black ape mutant beast, he would have almost clapped his hands and laughed heartily. Ha ha ha, this Xiao understands. This axe is a divine weapon, annihilating everything in the world. My human race and mutant beasts all have flesh and blood, so they should be able to pick up this axe. And the wood-type mutant's body is a spirit wood, so how can it pick up this axe? No wonder the sky-piercing peak's previous restriction didn't stop wood-type mutants, because they simply don't have the qualifications to use this axe. Xiao Hua already understood, but the lightning amplification bamboo didn't. The bamboo joint once again stretched out and was about to fall, but unfortunately, the result was the same. All the bamboo joints that approached the axe were shattered. There was no exception. Haha, this item is eyes as Xiao Hua laughed. He had already flown in front of the axe. His phoenix claws swiftly and fiercely descended, passing through the shattered bamboo to grab the axe. Xiao Hua's suspended heart finally settled down. The several strange beasts closest to the axe were all blocked by his own clones. No one could stop the phoenix Xiao Hua from taking the axe. Unfortunately, right at the instant Xiao Hua came into contact with the axe, a ferocious aura arrived unexpectedly from extremely far away and assaulted Xiao Hua. This aura seemed to have substance, and was more powerful than any of the attack methods that Xiao Hua had seen before. Although Phoenix body Xiao Hua had extended his phoenix claw, his origin perception had long since scanned the surroundings, and he was extremely vigilant in his heart. However, this aura was formless and traceless, and extremely strangely appeared near Phoenix body Xiao Hua. Phoenix body Xiao Hua was greatly shocked, so how could he still dare to take the axe? He hastily flapped his wings, and numerous illusory figures appeared. Those two phoenix claws even swiped through the air with a swoosh, forming a star moon shield, wanting to block this aura. Boom! With a loud bang, not only was the star moon shield smashed into pieces, even the illusory wings were destroyed. Even Phoenix body Xiao Hua, who was on the verge of 9th grade origin energy, was sent tumbling in midair, and helplessly fell to the side of Heaven Connecting Peak. In midair, feathers and bloodstains slowly fell along with Phoenix body Xiao Hua's unyieldingness. Shortly after, that aura rolled in midair, and once again crashed down with a loud bang. Boom boom boom! Amidst the violent tremors, all of the primeval strange beasts that were fighting were knocked down by this aura for more than several hundred li. When the primeval strange beasts appeared in midair, all of their bodies were trembling, and traces of blood appeared on the surface of their bodies. No matter if it was their two eyes or their single eye, their eyes all carried incomparable fear as they looked towards the origin of that aura. As for the thunder-amplifying bamboo, deadwood, and even the sky-soaring vine and other wood-attribute strange beasts, they were even more unbearable under this aura. Kacha-kacha, crisp sounds continuously rang out, and the majority of their bodies that were climbing up Heaven Connecting Peak were smashed to pieces, and they hastily retreated back into the ground. The primeval strange beasts were beaten into such a sorry state, and Xiao Hua was similarly unable to bear it. The golden light that protected his body was annihilated by this aura, and the true essence within his body was beaten until it dissipated. Even the true qi within his middle dantian was beaten into chaos. An indescribable dizziness emerged from his Naiwan palace, and it didn't disperse for a long time. The phoenix body Xiao Hua was the most seriously injured, and he had already fainted after falling from midair. Fortunately, he had the devil spirit Xiaohua by his side. The devil spirit Xiaohua vigilantly abandoned his four-winged bird and caught the phoenix body Xiaohua. Under the attack of that aura, he hastily fled to Xiaohua's side. Then, while the other primeval strange beasts were panicking, he escaped into Xiaohua's body. As for the dragon vein Xiaohua and the others, because they were too far away from Xiaohua, they didn't dare to act rashly at this time. They all blended into the group of primeval strange beasts and quietly observed the situation. After that aura that injured the primeval strange beasts appeared for a moment, it immediately disappeared. Then, in the horizon, a pitch-black cloud and mist appeared. This cloud and mist instantly dyed the sky black and swept towards the heaven-connecting peak. The aura that was exactly the same as the previous one was like a stormy sea, and it enveloped the space of several tens of thousands of li. Then, a cold voice that carried the vicissitudes of life, bloodthirst, and anger rippled through the entire space like a god. Although this voice sounded very unfamiliar, when it landed in Xiaohua's ears, Xiaohua understood. Damned bunch of little things. Why don't you take a piss and look at yourselves in the mirror? You actually dare to come and snatch the Pengu axe. You all deserve to die for having such thoughts. Damn it, Xiaohua hid beside the black ape strange beast, biting his lips, and did his best to resist the aura that could make 10,000 beasts kneel down. He thought to himself, there really is an ambush behind the heaven-connecting peak. This thing that wants to come, I'm afraid it has been spying on my existence all this time, right? However, although this aura is so terrifying, within it, there is a hint of familiarity. This trace of familiarity, what is it? The dark clouds were about to press down, and that terrifying aura became even denser. Even someone as strong as Xiaohua couldn't help but fall down again. Within the rolling dark clouds, a strange beast that was several tens of thousands of zhang in size gradually revealed its figure. It's a bit strange. Xiaohua's gaze fell on the dark clouds, and he couldn't help but frown. This was because the dark clouds were emitting a dense desolate aura, and there were also layers of dragon patterns. These dragon patterns were golden in color, and they condensed into the shape of a dragon within the dark clouds. However, the strange beast that was revealed was surrounded by demonic clouds, and the demonic clouds weren't completely in the shape of a dragon. Instead, it was a monster that looked like a dog yet wasn't a dog. A monster that looked like a dragon yet wasn't a dragon. As soon as this monster appeared, a boundless pressure fell down from the sky. As the demonic clouds around its body swelled, huge scales could be vaguely seen. The natural patterns on the scales, and the chaotic desolate aura, were constantly being born and destroyed within these patterns. Could it be that this is the dragon-shaped god? Xiaohua suddenly understood. His naked eyes were almost unable to look directly at this monster, because the aura on this monster's body was much higher than that of a human. Under the gaze of a human, the monster's body had long been distorted. To Xiaohua, rather than saying that the monster was standing in midair, it was better to say that the monster was in the void. However, just as Xiaohua was puzzled, a few strands of Buddhist light appeared within the monster's demonic clouds, and when the demonic clouds rolled, they became even denser. What? This monster is actually related to Namo Maitreya Buddha? Xiaohua was shocked. However, when he saw that the Buddhist light was instantly destroyed by the demonic clouds, and another voice, equally ancient but also filled with compassion and pity, was born from another direction of the heaven-connecting peak, he suddenly came to a realization. No, this is another existence sure enough. When that voice fell into Xiaohua's ears, it was another voice. Heaven-swallowing beast, are you trying to lure this old man out? Xiaohua hurriedly wanted to turn his head, but at this moment, another familiar aura, although faint, still had an indestructible momentum, pounced over from that direction. This aura fell into the previous aura. Boom, 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 loud explosions rang out, and the entire space within 1,000 li of it collapsed. Xiaohua didn't even need to turn his head to know that the newcomer was the underground expert he had met when he was looking for Chaotian Tower. However, the expert at this time had revealed his ability, far surpassing his expectations. Xiao Hua and the group of strange beasts scattered in all directions like birds startled by the twang of a bow. They originally thought that they were the main characters of the heaven-connecting peak, but when the real main character appeared, they discovered that they were merely fish in the moat. Xiao Hua, who was fleeing in panic, finally turned his head, only to see that in the opposite direction of the heaven-swallowing beast, the horizon was reddish-yellow. Within the reddish-yellow clouds, there was a myriad of layers of Buddhist light. Within the clouds, wind-like ripples fluttered irregularly, and within the Buddhist light, there were heavenly dragons and fairies appearing and disappearing from time to time. Above these clouds that were shaped like Buddhist lotuses, there was also a strange beast that was several tens of thousands of zhang in size. Ah, this. Who exactly is this dragon-shaped god? When Xiao Hua saw this strange beast, although he had never seen it before, a trace of the same familiar feeling arose from the bottom of his heart, and he couldn't help but exclaim in a low voice. This strange beast had a tiger head, a single horn, a dog's ears, a dragon's body, a lion's tail, and a cheetah's feet. It looked rather strange, and its appearance was similar to that of a dragon yet not a dragon, a tiger yet not a tiger, a lion yet not a lion, a cheetah yet not a cheetah, and a dog yet not a dog. Moreover, under the Buddhist light, there was actually a layer of guardian heavenly king's projection outside of the beast's body. At this time, Dragon Vein Xiao Hua and the others had already taken advantage of the chaos to land around Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua hurriedly transmitted his voice to Buddha Bodhi. This strange beast looks like a dragon. Could it be that it is that dragon-shaped god? Namo Maitreya, Buddha Bodhi's figure fell into Xiao Hua's Niwen palace, and he somewhat indifferently replied, Sandalwood, this thing is definitely related to my Buddhist sect. Its body has a dense Buddha nature of Namo Maitreya, and it also has the Buddha fruit of Guardian Heavenly King. Chapter 42-36. As soon as Bodhi's voice came out, the monster's strange eyes rolled and swept toward Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua was shocked and retreated again. At this time, the voice of the heaven-devouring beast sounded. Di Ting, you and I have to settle this. This Tongtian Peak is the best choice for you and me. Not bad, not bad. Di Ting raised its tiger head and praised. In this incomplete eldritch continent, only this Tongtian Peak is worth seeing. You've really put in a lot of effort for today's battle. As it spoke, Di Ting's gaze fell on the axe. Moreover, you actually took out Dragon God's Pangu axe. It seems like you and I are going to fight to the death today, huh? The heaven-devouring beast was stunned and surprised. Unfortunately, before it could speak, Di Ting opened its mouth and spat out a Buddhist light that fell on Pangu axe. How could the heaven-devouring beast care to speak? He also opened his mouth, and the space within 1,000 miles in front of his head suddenly turned black and collapsed, as if it was being swallowed. Just as the black crater was about to block the Buddha's light, Di Ting's figure suddenly swayed and disappeared from the spot. Then fist-sized Buddha lotuses appeared in the vicinity of the Heaven's Path Peak. Each Buddha lotus was burning with crimson karmic fire. Let's go, Xiao Hua shouted. His mind swept over the sky-soaring vine, and with a wave of his sleeve he caught Sky-devouring Beast, who was with the sky-soaring vine. His figure turned into a thunderbolt, and he fled into the distance with the group of strange beasts. At this time, Pangu Axe had turned into a flower in the mirror and the moon in the water. It had nothing to do with Xiao Hua anymore. The battle between the two eldritch beasts was not something these eldritch beasts could participate in. Xiao Hua and the rest were not fools. They knew that if they stayed here any longer, they would lose their lives. Damn it, the heaven-devouring beast cursed angrily. Its whole body was covered with black clouds and countless dragons pounced on the red lotus karmic fire. In a loud roar, Di Ting's figure flew out from one of the red lotus karmic fire, and quickly used the horn on its head to hit the heaven-devouring beast's chest. Caught off guard, the heaven-devouring beast was flipped over by Di Ting. As the earth quaked and the mountains shook, the heaven-devouring beast's body crashed into a mountain range of nearly 1,000 miles, causing it to collapse. As Truth Listener pounced at the heaven-devouring beast, it said coldly, "Since I know that this Pangu axe is a trap, how can I fall for it so easily?" Woof woof, the heaven-swallowing beast let out a bark that sounded like a dog's bark. It leaped out from the collapsed ground and shouted, "If I want to kill you, why would I need to use a trap? Damn it, There's a problem. Xiaohua fled while peeking. Hearing this, he looked at the sky collapsing and earth sinking battle in the distance, and unconsciously came to a realization. However, this has nothing to do with this Xiao. Let this Xiao escape first before anything else. However, just as Xiaohua felt that he was about to be safe, the space around him suddenly froze, as if a giant seal had been placed on him. Xiaohua was shocked and hurriedly urged the magic power in his body. Lightning burst out from his body, wanting to break the seal. However, before his magic power could be generated, he saw a stream of light flash in front of his eyes. Layers of Buddhist lotuses bloomed, and his figure flew out from the Buddhist lotuses, appearing at the Tongtian peak that he had escaped from earlier. What's going on? Xiaohua was shocked and hurriedly urged his magic power. Unfortunately, all of Xiaohua's magic power was restricted at this time. He couldn't use a trace of magic power, and he couldn't use any strength. After this old man kills the heaven-devouring beast, I'll send you to the Western Paradise. Truth Listener's voice was like the sound of heaven. You actually dared to snatch the Maitreya Buddha's Buddhist light. You're even more despicable than the dragon god. Damn it, Xiaohua was almost gnashing his teeth. He already understood that everything he had done in the primitive continent was seen by Truth Listener. This Truth Listener was probably related to Jiang Luer's previous life. He had touched Truth Listener's bottom line. How could Truth Listener let him go? Only when the heaven-devouring beast kills Truth Listener would he have a chance to escape, right? That's right. After this old man kills Truth Listener, I'll also kill this guy. At this time, the heaven-devouring beast's voice also sounded. On this continent, other than the dragon god, there can be no other dragon race. When Xiaohua heard this, he couldn't help but feel his soul fly out of his body. He had calculated many times, but he didn't expect that the existence that was spying on him was right beside him. His crisis actually came from these two strange beasts with the ability to penetrate heaven and earth. Even if Xiaohua didn't want to watch the two strange beasts fight, he had no choice but to watch. The two strange beasts, Truth Listener and the heaven-devouring beast, each used their magic power. The space within tens of thousands of miles was torn apart. On the entire land, all the mountains, forests, and everything else were destroyed by the two beasts. Those strange beasts that couldn't escape in time were also killed. There were no exceptions. Other than the sky not being pierced through, everything was not beyond Xiaohua's expectations. Looking at such an earth-shattering battle, Xiaohua only had one thought in his mind. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Hurry up and use your magic power. Let's fight to the death and perish together. Of course, Xiaohua was also clear in his heart that these two strange beasts had survived and endured on this continent for so many years because they had a clear understanding of each other's strength. They knew that they didn't have the confidence to win, so they didn't make a move for so long. The possibility of them perishing together was very high. Moreover, while praying, Xiaohua also looked elsewhere, waiting for the third person who hadn't appeared yet. Because from the short conversation between the two beasts, Xiaohua had already faintly smelled the scent of a conspiracy. Previously, Xiaohua might have had a trace of an idea to reveal to the two beasts, but now that he heard that the two beasts wanted to kill him, Xiaohua naturally hid this idea deeply. Unfortunately, the development of the matter was not within Xiaohua's control. The two beasts fought for more than 10 days. Seeing that the sky was turned upside down and the earth was turned upside down, there were no other peaks in the hundreds of thousands of li of land, but the two beasts still hadn't decided a victor. Although whether it was Di Ting or the heaven-swallowing beast, their bodies were stained with blood and large pieces of flesh were missing. The two beasts were still very far away from perishing together. The third person who was supposed to appear had also not appeared. Woof! The heaven-swallowing beast let out a slightly miserable roar, blowing away the spatial cracks that filled the sky and falling into Xiaohua's ears. This sound is somewhat similar to Little Black. Xiaohua, who was burning with anxiety, didn't notice it before. At this moment he suddenly frowned. Thinking of the familiarity he felt when he saw the heaven-swallowing beast earlier, Xiaohua's heart gave birth to an inconceivable thought. Damn it, this heaven-swallowing beast can't be related to Little Black, right? Thinking of Little Black, Xiaohua's gaze naturally fell on Di Ting. There was almost no need to guess. Xiaohua already understood that this Di Ting must be related to Little Yellow, because as early as in the Xiaoyu continent, the 10,000 Demon Realm Empress had already said that Little Yellow might be Di Ting. Moreover, when he saw Di Ting, he also had an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Wasn't it Little Yellow's aura? Damn it, Little Yellow, Little Black, your father and mother are going to be killed by your... I don't know if it's your ancestors or descendants. You're going to become orphans. Xiaohua had a feeling of defeat. Facing such a strange beast, he really didn't have any power to fight back. Even if he used the heavenly white bone. Maybe only this Pangu axe. Xiaohua turned his eyes to look at the Pangu axe. It's just... I don't know if this Pangu axe is real or fake. Why hasn't the third person who put the Pangu axe here come? Seeing that these two strange beasts didn't even look at the Pangu axe, this Pangu axe is probably a fake. Otherwise... While Xiaohua was looking at the Pangu axe, the heaven-devouring beast was also looking at it. Its gigantic body suddenly emitted a monstrous demonic aura that covered thousands of miles. Amidst the demonic aura, dragon tattoos that resembled black flood dragons regrouped and pounced at Di Ting, who was covered in Buddhist light. Roar as Di Ting roared, the space began to boil. The Buddhist light turned into strange branch-like Buddhist weapons that smashed towards the dragon patterns. Another wave of dazzling light that could tear apart the primitive world was born in every inch of the void, once again overturning and tearing the void. Even the seal around Xiaohua's body was torn apart. However, when these dazzling lights landed on the heaven-connecting peak, the dark purple mountain rocks only sparkled, and there was no damage at all. Damn it, in this dazzling light, Di Ting suddenly roared. Its huge body turned into a stream of light and rushed towards the heaven-connecting peak. Xiaohua was stunned and hurriedly turned his head to look. The heaven-swallowing beast had actually taken advantage of the attack, just now to rush towards the Pangu axe. Seeing this, Di Ting suddenly came to a realization. This Pangu axe is actually real? Although Di Ting's body turned into a stream of light, the heaven-swallowing beast was half a step ahead. Its body was like the wind, and it had already rushed in front of the Pangu axe. Seeing that it couldn't stop the heaven-swallowing beast, Di Ting opened its mouth and hundreds of lightning bolts turned into the shape of Buddhist lotuses and attacked the heaven-swallowing beast's back. At the same time, Di Ting's body turned into a dragon, and its horn was like a meteor as it fiercely pounced on the heaven-swallowing beast. Seeing that the demonic clouds around the heaven-swallowing beast's body were flourishing, and a huge tentacle suddenly appeared, and was about to grab the Pangu axe, Di Ting roared again and sped up. At the same time that Di Ting sped up, a spatial rift that was hundreds of feet wide suddenly appeared above Di Ting. Then a strange beast that looked very similar to Xiao He poked its head out of the rift, and with a buzzing sound bit Di Ting's dragon body. At this time, the lightning bolts that Di Ting sent towards the heaven-swallowing beast had already landed on the heaven-swallowing beast's back. Amidst a loud boom, the heaven-swallowing beast's body turned into a phantom. Within the phantom, the pitch-black demonic clouds were scattered by the lightning. Di Ting was shocked. He really didn't expect the heaven-swallowing beast to trick him again. At this time, it was too late to turn around. This was because although the head that poked out was small, the mouth that opened looked huge. Di Ting's huge dragon body actually fell into that extremely small mouth. Chapter 42-37. Roar helpless, Di Ting could only speed up in an attempt to escape from the mouth of the heaven-devouring beast. Woof! The heaven-devouring beast let out a clear cry as it bit down on half of Di Ting's dragon body. Di Ting's body glowed with Buddhist light and lightning as it tried its best to stop the heaven-devouring beast from devouring it. However, the heaven-devouring beast managed to bite down on half of its dragon body. Roar! Di Ting roared in pain as the Buddhist light around him diminished greatly. However, under his desperate struggle, his remaining body managed to escape from the heaven-devouring beast's devouring once again. Woof! The heaven-devouring beast let out a wild cry as the spatial rift rapidly expanded. Even the space within a few hundred miles began to ripple. The heaven-devouring beast's huge body emerged from the void once again as it pounced on Di Ting with its pitch-black demonic clouds. Damn it! Seeing this scene, Xiaohua's heart turned cold. Di Ting is seriously injured. As long as the heaven-devouring beast continues its pursuit, Di Ting will definitely die. If Di-Ting dies, I'm afraid I'll also die in the heaven-devouring beast's mouth. Why is my life so bitter? If Xiaohua could think of this, how could Di-Ting not think of it? Di-Ting continued to fly forward as his entire body twitched. At the same time, the dim Buddhist light shone brightly as if he was about to make a final struggle. At this moment, Di-Ting had already flown to the front of Tongtian Peak and was extremely close to Panga's axe. Although Di-Ting did not believe that Panga's axe was real, he still lifted his qilin-like foot and landed on Panga's axe. With Panga's axe in hand, Di-Ting suddenly turned around. The qilin foot transformed into an arm as it brandished Panga's axe at the heaven-devouring beast that was chasing after it. Once Panga's axe was swung, an incomparably ferocious aura immediately emanated from it. This aura enveloped the space within a few thousand miles. Under this aura, everything was imprisoned, whether it was spatial rifts or spatial fluctuations. Even the seemingly invincible heaven-devouring beast's speed suddenly decreased as the demonic clouds around it were blown away. Ow! How is this possible? This Panga's axe is real? When did you get the Pangu axe? The heaven-swallowing beast cried out in disbelief. You have the Pangu axe, why have you always? Unfortunately, Di-Ting did not listen to the heaven-devouring beast's words, nor would he answer its question. The Pangu axe slowly descended along with his arm, and the light and shadows within tens of thousands of miles were annihilated by the edge of the axe. The world turned dark. Xiaohua didn't even see what was happening. The entire world was filled with a kind of sharpness. The shackles around Xiaohua's body were instantly cleaved apart, and bloody wounds several inches deep appeared on his body. Xiaohua was shocked on the spot. Is this Panga's axe? This thing was 100 times stronger than the soaring dragon shears, and 1,000 times stronger than the soaring dragon shears. 10,000 times. Amidst his shock, Xiaohua didn't dare to escape casually. Ignoring the fact that he couldn't escape from Truth Listener. Even if Truth Listener stood there motionlessly and casually brandished Panga's axe, Xiaohua wouldn't be able to escape even if he fled 5,000 kilometers away. While Xiaohua was shocked, the heaven-devouring beast was in big trouble. Although it tried its best to dodge, under the Pangu axe, even if its body turned into wind, it would still be cleaved into two. Almost silently, the heaven-devouring beast's entire body was cleaved into two halves except for its head. Woof! The heaven-devouring beast roared weakly. The half of its body that was still connected to its head was wrapped in pitch-black demonic clouds and rapidly shrunk, while the other half of its body instantly dried up and turned into powder, disappearing into the air. Success in one strike, Di-Ting said coldly. I didn't expect you to actually dare to use the real Pangu axe as bait. Since that's the case, then I'll chop off this Tongtian Peak, where you worship the dragon god, so that those stone giants don't worship your bullshit dragon god. After saying that, Di-Ting no longer paid attention to the heaven-devouring beast that was almost powerless to fight back. Its figure leaped up again, and Panga's axe waved again. However, this time, the Pangu axe was even slower. Looking at Di-Ting's appearance, this Pangu axe was even heavier than before. Wait! At this moment, the heaven-devouring beast suddenly heard something strange and hurriedly shouted. However, it would have been better if it had not spoken. As soon as it spoke, the Buddhist light around Di-Ting suddenly disappeared. Under Di-Ting's forceful swing, Panga's axe actually roared. Woo-woo. Then there was a soft sound, like a willow branch brushing against a mountain rock. However, after this soft sound, the entire Tongtian Peak immediately emitted a purplish brilliance. Amidst the brilliance, Di-Ting's figure fell backward uncontrollably. The Pangu axe in its hand drew an arc in midair, which went straight through the void and disappeared into the ground. Damn it, damn it, damn it! Di-Ting's figure had not yet stabilized when it roared again. Then it perked up. A blood-red brilliance appeared on its horn, and its entire body pounced toward the Tongtian Peak again. Di-Ting's fierce voice sounded in the chaotic air. Even if I'm going to die, I must knock down this Tongtian Peak. I will never let this bullshit dragon god accumulate the power of faith. Boom. Di-Ting's figure was so fast. Before its voice fell, its horn had already hit the Tongtian Peak. In fact, the Tongtian Peak had already been cut off when Panga's axe fell. It was just that Panga's axe was too sharp, So the Tongtian Peak did not collapse. Now that Di Ting's horn hit the Tongtian Peak, there was a huge roar, and the sky changed color. The Tongtian Peak that pierced through the earth, fire, wind, and thunder was knocked down just like that. Xiao Hua stood in midair, dumbfounded as he watched Di Ting, whose horn was broken and who was on the verge of death, being blown away by the collapsing force of the Tongtian Peak. Then he looked at the huge mountain collapsing like a stone pillar. An inconceivable feeling involuntarily rose from the bottom of his heart. He roared in a low voice that was close to a whisper, Is this the magical ability of a prehistoric beast? Is this the ability to collapse mountains and split the earth by raising its hand? How is this possible in the cultivation world? Damn it! And you? While Xiao Hua was in a daze, Di Ting's fierce voice sounded again. You fought with Maitreya Buddha Lord for the Buddha's light. You must die too. As it spoke, a suffocating aura once again fell from the sky, wanting to imprison Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua sneered. He hurriedly rubbed his hands, and a huge crystal light fell into the void. His figure hurriedly prepared to escape. Although Xiao Hua was not afraid of two dying beasts, he really did not need to fight with them. He only needed to wait for them to die slowly. Wait. At this moment, another aura blocked Di Ting's killing aura. The voice of the heaven-devouring beast sounded. Di Ting, let me ask you. This Tongtian Peak. Weren't you the one who ordered the stone giants to build it? Di Ting was stunned. Then he coldly snorted and replied. How could it be me? Why did I build this Tongtian Peak? Back then, weren't you the one who ordered hundreds of millions of stone giants to build this Tongtian Peak? Wasn't it for today's battle? Is it to pay respects to your dragon god? How is that possible? The heaven-devouring beast exclaimed. How could I order hundreds of millions of stone giants? I thought you built a Tongtian Peak similar to a Buddhist pagoda to gather the power of faith for Maitreya Buddha Lord. Which eye of yours thinks the Tongtian Peak looks like a Buddhist pagoda? Isn't it similar to the Dragon Clan's altar? Di Ting also felt that something was wrong and retorted. Back then, hundreds of millions of stone giants built the Tongtian Peak. It was divided into 9 stages. Isn't each stage a pagoda? The heaven-devouring beast seemed to recall. Back then, if I wasn't afraid of your Buddhist treasure, I would have torn down your Tongtian Peak. Bullshit. Di Ting also said angrily. Is building the Tongtian Peak into 9 stages a Buddhist pagoda? Isn't the Dragon Clan's altar built in the same way? If I wasn't afraid of your dragon artifact back then, I would have torn down this Tongtian Peak. Then at this point, Di Ting and the heaven-devouring beast said in unison. Then who built this Tongtian Peak? Seeing the two strange beasts entangled with each other again, Xiao Hua quietly ordered. The green-robed Xiao Hua steered his invisible nascent soul, and secretly slipped out of Xiao Hua's body, heading towards the place where Panga's axe fell. Who knew that these two strange beasts were so powerful? The moment the green-robed Xiao Hua slipped out, Di Ting immediately noticed and turned around to ask. Xiao Hua hastily opened his mouth and transmitted his voice. Seniors, Junior feels that you should first see who left the crystals in Imperial Heaven Tower, and who placed that divine artifact on Heavenspan Peak before talking. Only by knowing this can you find out who built the Tongtian Peak. But speaking of this, Xiao Hua was a little surprised. Hundreds of millions of stone giants built the Tongtian Peak. Was it just to arouse the suspicion of these two strange beasts? To place Panga's axe? As soon as Xiao Hua spoke, the two strange beasts' eyes shone with an ominous glint. One emitted a demonic aura, while the other emitted a Buddhist aura. It seemed that they both wanted to kill Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua was slightly startled and hurriedly shouted. Seniors, this junior just came to the great desolate continent. I didn't have the chance nor the ability to build this Tongtian Peak. You naturally don't have the ability. But if I die here today, Maitreya Buddha's Buddhist aura will definitely be. How could Di Ting be willing to listen to Xiao Hua's explanation? He said coldly, abandoning the heaven-devouring beast, and pouncing towards Xiao Hua. Seeing that the heaven-devouring beast didn't release its aura, and didn't use its divine ability, Xiao Hua already had a plan in mind. He hurriedly urged his magic power to dodge. But at this moment, a burst of light sound like thunder came from high up in the sky. Then the sound of splashing water sounded again. Not only was Xiaohua taken aback, but even Truth Listener, who was lunging over, was taken aback. It looked up in surprise and saw that the light blue sky was as smooth as a mirror. The spot where the Heaven Ascension Peak had previously pierced into the sky was now an azure hole. A large amount of water dripped down from this azure hole. In particular, around the hole, clear cracks radiated towards the entire horizon. Pieces of the sky were like shattered mirrors that collapsed along with these cracks. The strangest thing was that the azure color around the hole was also spreading in all directions along with the shattered mirror. The further away from the hole, the fainter it became. Chapter 4238. It's raining? How can it be raining? How can it be raining now? Xiaohua was inexplicably nervous. After all, he had traveled around the Eldritch continent for decades and had seen very little water elemental energy. He had already regarded the Eldritch continent as a place where the 5 elements were incomplete. Now that the Tongtian Peak had suddenly collapsed and the sky was leaking water light, how could he not be surprised? What surprised Xiaohua was not only this, but in the sky, as the sky collapsed, the hole became bigger and bigger. The blue around the hole spread in all directions, and bright white water light fell from these holes. The dazzling color of the water light made Xiaohua's eyes unable to take it in. Is the sky collapsing, or is it raining? Looking at the sky collapsing and countless water droplets falling from the sky, Xiaohua was truly at a loss. However, when he released his divine sense and wanted to investigate, the abnormality in the divine sense immediately made his face change. He exclaimed in disbelief, This is innate heavy water? Motherfucker, where did so much innate heavy water come from? Not only was Xiaohua surprised, but the heaven-swallowing beast and Di Ting were also surprised. They looked up at the innate heavy water that was like a clear stream in the beginning, but when it fell into the sky, it was like a flood. They did not know what was wrong with it. Not good. Xiaohua's heart was full of doubts, but he did not get an answer. However, when his divine sense swept across the land that had long turned into ruins within hundreds of thousands of miles, he suddenly had a kind of enlightenment. A terrible thought came from the bottom of his heart, and he could not help but exclaim, This innate heavy water falling to the ground, isn't it more powerful than the fight between 2 strange beasts? 2 strange beasts can destroy everything within 100,000 miles. Then this heavy water can destroy everything in the Eldritch continent. Is this the rhythm of the world's destruction? Thinking of this, Xiaohua's tongue was like spring thunder, and he roared at the heaven-swallowing beast and Di Ting, Speak quickly. What is going on? Damn it. The Harkin was infuriated when it heard this. A mere human dares to shout at me. Who do you think you are? Shut up. Xiaohua interrupted Di Ting's arrogance and berated. Isn't this all your fault? You knocked down the Tongtian Peak, causing the sky to collapse and the earth to sink. This is the Khanate heavy water, which is enough to destroy the entire primordial continent. The number of people you have killed is not something you can imagine. Even if Namomethria came personally, he would not dare to be so bold. Hurry up and tell this Xiao what's going on. Let's hurry. It's too late. Let's hurry up and fix this sky. Xiaohua knew that the sky had just collapsed and had yet to take shape. Although he didn't know what had happened, if he didn't take action now and continued to dawdle with these 2 strange beasts, it would be too late for him to do anything. As he spoke, Xiaohua slapped the top of his head. Buddhist light shot out, and Bodhi flew out of his Naiwan palace. Bodhi didn't understand what was going on at first, but with a thought from Xiaohua, he instantly understood what was going on. Bodhi's face fell, and he shot up into the sky while chanting, Namo Methriya Buddha. His hands formed a seal, and the clear water bottle appeared in his Buddhist seal. At the same time, the clear water bottle shone brightly, as if a sun was born from it. Wherever the Buddhist light shone, the Khanate true water would fall into the clear water bottle. A ferocious glint flashed through Di Ting's eyes when he saw Bodhi appear. However, Bodhi ignored him and used his ability to collect the Khanate heavy water instead. Di Ting gritted his teeth and temporarily suppressed his vile thoughts. Let's go. Seeing this, the heaven-devouring beast narrowed its eyes and followed Bodhi into the sky. It even shouted, We'll go and see what's going on. The Harkin responded faintly as it flew up into the air as well. Just a moment ago, these two opponents were still locked in a fierce battle of life and death. But now that they were on the brink of death, they finally let go of the vigilance that had existed for countless years. Xiaohua was some distance away from Bodhi. He also released his divine sense and enveloped the space within 1,000 miles. All the Khanate heavy water that fell down was absorbed into his space. Seeing that his mind was useful, Xiaohua expanded his mind bit by bit, wanting to absorb more of the innate heavy water into his space, even though his mind was corroded by the innate heavy water, and waves of sourness came from his mind like ants biting at him. However, Xiaohua had overestimated his divine arts. His psyche might be able to expand to tens of thousands of miles, but the innate heavy water was everywhere within 10,000 miles. Furthermore, it was pouring down endlessly. Xiaohua's psyche still had some energy left over to prevent the water from leaking out, but after 10,000 miles, it was beyond his power. A lot of heavy water leaked out from his psyche and landed on the ground. Rumble at this time. The Khanate true water that fell from the sky had already begun to wash the ground like a mountain flood. Rumbling sounds came from afar. Xiaohua didn't need to release his divine sense at all, nor did he need to fly over to check. He already knew that this was the Khanate heavy water that fell into the mountain range and washed it down. The signs of the collapse of the mountain and the earth were beginning to appear. The prelude to the destruction of the world had already begun. Moreover, even if Xiaohua used his heels to think, he could imagine that in this mountain range on this earth, who knew how many living beings would be annihilated by this landslide? Xiaohua even had a premonition that if there was no way to mend the sky, all the living beings in the entire primitive continent would be wiped out from the earth by the Khanate heavy water, no matter how strong or weak they were. No, I definitely can't let this kind of tragedy happen. Xiaohua saw that his remedy was like a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. He made a prompt decision to withdraw his divine sense. His figure flashed with lightning as he flew towards the sky. As he flew, he pondered, collecting the Khanate heavy water like this is only a temporary solution. If I don't find the source of the Khanate heavy water, this disaster won't stop at all. Xiaohua flew for a while, then his eyes turned rapidly. He stopped and raised his hand to take out Xiaodou, which he hadn't used for a long time. At this time, Xiaodou had already merged with Xiaohua's blood essence. Although Xiaohua still didn't know how to use it, it could be considered to have a slight connection with Xiaodou. Xiaohua shook his hand and took out Xiaodou. Unfortunately, when the Khanate heavy water fell into Xiaodou, Xiaodou didn't move at all. It was like an ordinary object, allowing the Khanate heavy water to wash over it. Xiaohua sighed. Knowing that this item was once again useless, he dejectedly put away the small bucket and continued to fly. After flying for an entire hour, he finally managed to arrive at the place where the Tongtian Peak pierced the sky. At this moment, this place had already become a kind of chaotic color. That endless innate heavy water gushed out in droves, as if the heavenly river was suddenly spilling out. This heavy water landed on the light protecting Xiaohua's body, emitting a sizzling sound. Admittedly, the heavy water was placed at the side, but Xiaohua's mana consumption was also extremely great. The heaven-swallowing beast and Di Ting had already arrived. The two strange beasts maintained a certain distance and looked at the waves in the sky somewhat foolishly. No one knew what they were thinking. Seniors, do you have any ideas? Xiaohua suppressed the anger in his chest and asked in a low voice. Di Ting turned its head and replied somewhat disdainfully. Of course I don't have any ideas. Otherwise, why would I look at it so foolishly? The heaven-swallowing beast looked at Xiaohua and forced its mouth open. Faint ripples flickered in the space of several thousand li. The Khanate heavy water within this range immediately turned into a torrent and rushed into the heaven-swallowing beast's mouth. However, just as the ripples in the space passed, countless Khanate heavy water fell again. It didn't stop for too long. The heaven-swallowing beast opened its mouth a few more times and swallowed a few more Khanate heavy water. Only then did it open its mouth and say, "Do you understand? We only have these methods. However, it seems similar to your method. It can't solve this disaster." Xiaohua knew that these two strange beasts were similar to the desolate continent's strange beasts. Although they had extremely powerful strength, the divine abilities they knew were limited. They definitely couldn't do something like patching the sky. Xiaohua pondered for a moment. His hands moved and tens of thousands of crystal lights fell into the sky. Soon after, Xiaohua raised his hand. Rumble, the space within 10,000 li trembled. Layers of ripples were produced. Within the ripples, pieces of brilliance appeared and turned into earthy yellow restrictions. They blocked the connate heavy water within 10,000 li. Moreover, Xiaohua slapped the door with his hand. Connate true qi spurted out, and Xiaohua also rushed into the sky. Confucian cultivator Xiaohua landed in the air. He opened his mouth and spat out one armor inscription after another. These armor inscriptions took the shape of a square in the sky. The square inscriptions neatly arranged themselves according to the words and sentences. In just a moment, they formed a word wall and a word mountain, blocking the innate heavy water inside the hole. Seeing that the spell and inscriptions were effective, Xiaohua was overjoyed. His figure teleported and flew in another direction. He wanted to use these methods to repair the hole in the distance. But before he could cast the spell, rumble, a huge sound of water came from beside him. Xiaohua's Dao Gate imprisonment and the Confucian cultivator's defense formation were unable to resist the heavy pressure of the connate heavy water. In the end, the connate heavy water broke through and turned into tens of thousands of feet of water falling from the sky. Fellow Taoists, seeing that all the restrictions were broken, Xiaohua panicked for no reason. His gaze swept across the sky that had collapsed a lot. A kind of panic that he had never felt before emerged from the bottom of his heart. Almost without any hesitation, he raised his hand and slapped the door on his head. He released his doppelgangers and shouted somewhat hurriedly, "Let's work together and block these holes." Yes. The doppelgangers sensed the panic in Xiaohua's heart. They didn't say a second word and flew in all directions. One by one, they used their magical powers. In the hundreds of thousands of li in the sky, all kinds of brilliance flashed. All kinds of heaven and earth origin qi surged, and a series of earth-shaking sounds and ghostly sounds were incessantly heard. Sure enough, people's hearts moved. In just a few minutes, the majestic rain finally stopped. Not a single drop of connate heavy water fell. Chapter 42-39. Fu Xiaohua heaved a long sigh of relief. He scanned the ground with his divine sense, and saw that the place that had been ravaged by the two beasts had become a thin swamp in such a short period of time. The connate heavy water was different from ordinary rain. Many mountains and rocks were corroded. Except for special places, the soil on the ground couldn't seep in. However, as long as there were some cracks in the ground, the connate heavy water was pervasive. If the entire primitive continent was drenched by this connate heavy water, not an inch of land would be left, and not even a blade of grass would be left. The end of the world wasn't a lie. Xiaohua sighed in his heart and withdrew his divine sense. He looked up again. The azure water was still spreading in all directions, and the sky was still collapsing wherever the water passed. He hurriedly said to the two beasts in the distance, "Seniors, you must have seen how I did it, right? Seniors, this is all you need to do. This is all I can do. I still have to take you fellow Taoists to other places. If it's possible, I implore you to lend a hand, or you can ask other seniors in the primitive continent to lend a hand." The heaven-devouring beast looked at the sky and said, "If it's normal, I can naturally lend a hand. However, I can't even take care of myself right now. I don't even know when I'll die, so I'm afraid I can't help you. As for the help you speak of, as far as I know, there's nothing in the primitive continent that can help you. Moreover, even if there is, this connate heavy water won't affect them, so they won't lend a hand." Xiaohua said furiously, "This connate heavy water might not affect them, but this connate heavy water can annihilate low-level primitive beasts. Just how many living beings are there?" At this point, Xiaohua stopped. Primitive beasts were different from humans. In their eyes, they only had themselves. Most of the time, they didn't even care about their own kind. How could they care about the lives of other races? Take the two exotic beasts in front of him, for example. Their strength far exceeded his. They were basically heavily injured now, but if they made a move, they would be several times stronger than him, and the effect would be much better. However, for the sake of their own survival, they would definitely not make a move. This was because they weren't humans. Even if they cultivated for 1,000,000 years, they probably wouldn't have a human nature. Forget it. Xiao Hua shook his head slightly and ordered the scholarly cultivator Xiao Hua and the others to head to another place to seal the collapsed sky. Then he transmitted his voice to the two strange beasts. Seniors, this is all Junior's wishful thinking. Whatever Seniors think and do is Senior's business. However, Junior has a feeling that this disaster will absolutely not end so simply. Although Junior has tried his best to stop it, Junior doesn't know how effective it will be. Therefore, this Junior would like to earnestly request the two Seniors to explain the ins and outs of the matter clearly. This Junior might be able to find something strange from within and find a way to eradicate this disaster. What do you want to know? The Harkin asked calmly. Seniors, who are the venerable dragon god and the Buddha Lord of Namo Maitreya Buddha? How did they get here? What were they doing here? Also, apart from them, were there any other Seniors here? That divine artifact, where did it go? Xiao Hua voiced out his doubts in one breath. Unfortunately, the Harkin and the heaven-swallowing beast didn't listen to him at all. They berated him almost in unison. How dare you? How can a little ant like you know about this kind of thing? Good. Xiao Hua's grief and indignation almost reached the extreme. He pointed his finger and said, this kind of thing is the business of the gods and Buddhas. It has nothing to do with us little ants. This Junior won't ask about it again in the future. However, Seniors, this Junior knows that your origins are extraordinary. However, Seniors, take a look. Heaven connecting peak collapsed because of your fight, and the sky also collapsed because of you. The billions of lives on this earth are in danger because of your grievances. They will fall into the 9 underworlds. This kind of sin, not to mention Namo Maitreya, even Mahavairakana's true body, and even the tens of thousands of Buddhas of the Thunder Temple can't bear it, right? After saying that, Xiao Hua no longer paid attention to the two strange beasts. He stepped on lightning and went in the direction of Xiao Hua and the others. Damn it! Di Ting's eyes glinted fiercely as he looked at Xiao Hua's back. The light of Buddha under his feet turned into sword light, and he looked like he was about to attack. However, when he glanced at the heaven-devouring beast, he saw a sneer in the beast's eyes. Di Ting was shocked again, and hurriedly retracted the light of Buddha. He moved further away from the heaven-devouring beast. Kacha. It was also at this moment that the seal that Xiao Hua previously added above the two beasts now cracked again. Drops of innate heavy water seeped out from the crack. Shuai Phantasm appeared in the air. Xiao Hua's figure appeared again. He launched several symbols to seal the crack. However, before he could leave, another crack appeared in the sky not far away. Xiao Hua had no choice but to seal it again. After a while, Xiao Hua finally sealed the sky within 10,000 miles. He didn't even look at the two strange beasts. He sighed. It's better to let it out than to block it. Then he disappeared again. Humph, he's just a little ant. Does he think he's the dragon god? The heaven-swallowing beast looked at Xiao Hua's back and snorted coldly. Beside him, Di Ting chimed in. Don't underestimate him, heaven-devouring beast. One of his incarnations is in the form of a dragon. If he can find the dragon's remains and obtain the dragon's horns and bones, he will definitely become venerable dragon god's greatest enemy in the future. How dare he? The heaven-swallowing beast roared. I'll eat him right now. However, the heaven-swallowing beast roared again. Whether the dragon god is alive or dead, and where his remains are, I don't even know. How can a little ant like him find it? I'm not worried about this at all. However, I do know that one of this little thing's avatars is cultivating the Dharma of Namo Maitreya Buddha. He's now competing with Namo Maitreya Buddha for the Buddha fruit. This Buddha fruit's Buddhist light. It won't be used to find the remains, right? Damn it! The Harkin cursed angrily. The heaven-swallowing beast had hit the nail on the head. However, Huang Xiaolong was clear that he could kill Xiao Hua, but Xiao Hua had too many clones, not to mention the number of Fortune Gate's disciples. After Huang Xiaolong killed Xiao Hua's clones, not to mention the fact that he might not survive, even if he did, how was he going to face the heaven-devouring beast? Boom! Right at this time, not far away from the two strange beasts, at the spot where the heaven-connecting peak pierced into the sky, A stream of jade-green water broke through Xiaohua's seal and rushed towards the boundless land. Near the green water, countless cracks appeared. The seal within 1,000 miles collapsed piece by piece, and the Xiantian heavy water fell uncontrollably. Xiaohua, who had arrived just in time, didn't appear. In the time it took to finish a cup of tea, all of the seals within 1,000 miles had been broken by the heavy water, and it poured down like a heavenly river. Sigh only now did Xiaohua's sigh faintly come out. He had already discovered it earlier. It wasn't that he didn't want to teleport over, but the sky tens of thousands of miles away also needed to be sealed. He was only late by half a cup of tea's time. Everything he had done before had turned into flowing water. Even if Xiaohua had 10 avatars. Boom 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 immediately afterward. A series of explosions rang out within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles. The seals from before were broken one after another. In the face of the might of heaven and earth, the methods of a grand ascension stage cultivator were truly insignificant. Ants, that's right, ants. Xiaohua listened to the incessant explosions and the sound of the heavy water falling, and he looked up into the sky and let out a long sigh. There are times when a person's strength is limited. Wanting to compete with the heavens is nothing more than a joke for a frog at the bottom of a well. Fellow Taoist at this moment, the scholarly cultivator Xiaohua and the others had all teleported over. All of them appeared to be exhausted, and they said, "We've already done our best. Please forgive us, fellow Taoist." Sigh, you've all worked hard, fellow Taoists. Xiaohua clasped his hands and said with a wry smile, "If we were to guard the area within 1,000 miles, we would be fine. However, the sky is collapsing extremely quickly, and it's already over 1,000,000 miles away. Even if we were to guard this area, we wouldn't be able to do anything beyond 100,000 miles away. All right. Everyone, please return. At this point, Xiaohua's brows furrowed, and he looked into the distance. He raised a hand and said, "We'll look elsewhere." Fellow Taoist, the scholarly cultivator Xiaohua said in a low voice, "There's no need for us to give up now, right? There are billions of living beings on the primitive continent. If we don't act, it really could be the end of the world." The end of the world? That would be the end of the primitive continent. It has nothing to do with us. Xiaohua chuckled lightly. Not to mention that with our cultivations, such an apocalyptic calamity might not be able to descend upon us. Let's go. While speaking, Xiaohua flew away. The group of clones looked at each other. Although they were puzzled, they didn't receive any hint or telepathic message from Xiaohua, so they didn't ask any more questions and followed Xiaohua. Heaven-devouring beast seeing Xiaohua and the others leave, Di Ting turned to the heaven-devouring beast and said, "What this little guy said is somewhat reasonable. This matter is indeed strange. I thought you were the one who built Heaven Connecting Peak and placed Panga's axe on it, but you thought I was the one who built Heaven Connecting Peak and placed Panga's axe on it. Then, who built Heaven Connecting Peak and placed Panga's axe on it?" The heaven-devouring beast shook its head slightly. "I don't know who it is. I'm afraid it has something to do with the purpose of my Lord Dragon God, and your Buddha Lord coming here?" At this point, the heaven-devouring beast looked at the falling innate heavy water, and said with a bitter smile, "As for the purpose of building Heaven Connecting Peak, it's naturally to accumulate innate heavy water. The purpose of placing Panga's axe on Heaven Connecting Peak is to attract you and me, so that we can push down Heaven Connecting Peak while fighting." Chapter 4240. If he has the Pangu axe, why would he need us to take action? He can just chop the Tongtian Peak in half. Di Ting was puzzled. Besides, if he wants to accumulate the Khanate heavy water, why would he waste so much effort to build the Tongtian Peak? The heaven-devouring beast smiled bitterly and shook his head. "How would I know? Perhaps he wants us to fight to the death before he can make a move? Or maybe he doesn't have the ability to wield the Pangu axe." However, this little fellow is right. Although Di Ting hated Xiaohua, he agreed with Xiaohua's thoughts like the heaven-devouring beast. "I was the one who bumped into the heaven-piercing peak. Although I didn't set up the Khanate heavy water, I can't escape responsibility. Although I'm not afraid of any negative karma, if this affects my Buddha Lord and allows this little ant's clone to benefit, then I'll really be ashamed of my Buddha Lord at this point." Di Ting raised his head as if he was listening to something. No, I have to find a way with this little guy. Where did this little guy go? It's only been a short while. Yet you can't find any trace of him? The heaven-devouring beast sneered. Aren't our methods 100 times more powerful than his? Why should we go with him? Although he's very weak, he has a lot of methods. Don't forget, he's a human, known as the spirit of all things. Their heads are the most powerful divine weapons in the chaos divine world. I know. As Di Ting spoke, he suddenly realized something. Without waiting for him to say more, the heaven-devouring beast also understood. The two beasts looked at each other and shouted in unison again. Penguax. This audacious thing is going to find the Penguax. That's right, Xiaohua released the green-robed Xiaohua earlier to find the Penguax. However, he received a transmission from the green-robed Xiaohua just now. The green-robed Xiaohua couldn't collect the Penguax, so he let Xiaohua go. Xiaohua naturally couldn't let Di Ting and the heaven-devouring beast know what he was doing, so he pretended to be dispirited and left with his clones. As soon as Xiaohua left the range of Di Ting's detection, he immediately turned invisible and fled toward the green-robed Xiaohua. However, he knew that with Truth Listener's ability, it wouldn't give him too much time, so he didn't dare delay for even a moment. Green-robed Xiaohua was in the depths of the earth, a rather strange place. However, this was not outside of Xiaohua's expectations. Penga's axe was known as a divine weapon. Even the void could not contain its sharp edge. How could an ordinary place hold Penga's axe? If it weren't for the special seal on the Tongtian Peak, the Pengu axe would have been able to split the Tongtian Peak into two halves. Xiaohua's figure appeared in the void. His gaze fell on the depths of the earth, where a layer of strange restrictions flickered. He seemed to be deep in thought. This restriction was different from ordinary restrictions. There were some faint black patterns on it. The black patterns were like black fish that slowly flowed within the restriction. Near the restriction, the water-type heaven-earth yuan qi that Xiaohua couldn't find previously was now in sight. Fellow Taoist green-robed Xiaohua's face carried a trace of embarrassment. He pointed at Penga's axe that was lying on top of the restriction and said, I received fellow Taoist's instructions and followed fellow Taoist's speculation all the way here. This thing is really strange. It's different from ordinary magic treasures. Divine sense can't find it at all. Even the naked eye can't see it. If I hadn't searched carefully, I definitely wouldn't have been able to find it. Xiaohua nodded. He didn't ask about Penga's axe. Instead, he pointed at the restriction and asked, What about this restriction? What's its origin? Or what's its use? Green-robed Xiaohua was stunned. He quickly replied, This restriction is incomplete. I have already examined it. It doesn't have any use at all. Good. Xiaohua smiled. He almost clapped his hands and said, If it weren't for this restriction, I don't know where this Penga's axe would have fallen. It seems like I have fate with this divine weapon. As he spoke, Xiaohua stretched out his hand and grabbed the handle of Penga's axe. However, a strange thing happened. Xiaohua's hand swept past the handle of the axe. It was as if the handle of Penga's axe was empty and didn't exist at all. An illusion? Xiaohua turned pale with fright. He used his hand to grab it a few more times, but it was all empty. Xiaohua's eyes turned a few times. He turned around and patted his forehead. He opened his delirium eyes. There was no need for Xiaohua to turn around. The nine-colored brilliance of Penga's delirium eyes had already reflected pain on Xiaohua's delirium eyes. Damn it! Xiaohua hurriedly closed his delirium eyes and turned his head to look at Penga's axe. He saw that Penga's axe was still Penga's axe, quietly lying on top of the restriction. His divine sense also passed through empty space. Alas, a divine weapon is a divine weapon after all. The majestic appearance of Di Ting holding Penga's axe and splitting Tongtian Peak appeared in Xiaohua's mind. He sighed and said, It's definitely not something an ordinary cultivator can obtain. Now, facing a divine weapon, I don't even have the ability to touch a divine weapon. What a pity, what a pity. Fellow Taoist is too weak. Just as Xiaohua was regretting, dragon vein Xiaohua's voice sounded. Others can't do it, but how can I not? Not bad, not bad. Xiaohua suddenly woke up. He patted his forehead and said, I forgot about you. You're the condensed body of dragon domain dragon cleansing liquid. You're different from us. You can't even enter ice space. Presumably you can pick up this thing. I'll give it a try first. Dragon Vein Xiaohua came out from Xiaohua's body and said with a smile, I heard from that heaven-swallowing beast that this divine artifact seems to be related to his dragon god. This poor Taoist is also a 5-clawed golden dragon. Perhaps I can succeed. Fellow Taoist, please. Xiaohua smiled and stepped aside. He said, if you can't do it, we'll leave now. Presumably, Di Ting has already woken up and is looking for us. If they find out that we're thinking about Panga's axe, I'm afraid that heaven-swallowing beast won't let us off. All right. Dragon Vein Xiaohua raised his hand. 5 dragon claws stretched out and landed on the Panga's axe's handle. A layer of fine lines flashed on the axe's handle and faced Dragon Vein Xiaohua's dragon claws. Rumble. Xiaohua's surroundings rumbled. It was completely different from when Di Ting picked up Panga's axe. However, since there was an abnormality, it meant that there was a chance. Xiaohua's heart couldn't help but raise. Wu, a whimpering sound came from the space. Dragon Vein Xiaohua's dragon claws retracted. The Panga's axe's blade streaked across the void. The entire Panga's axe was really picked up by Dragon Vein Xiaohua. Go. Xiaohua was overjoyed. He urged, once this place moves, Di Ting will know. Let's go quickly. No. Dragon Vein Xiaohua smiled bitterly. His dragon claws seemed to be holding a heavy object. He hammered it under his body and said, this thing is incomparably heavy. If I don't take it, I won't be able to escape. Wait a moment. Xiaohua hurriedly flicked his sleeve and took out the Kunlun mirror. However, he looked at the Kunlun mirror and then looked at the Panga's axe. He smiled bitterly and said, forget it. You better hurry up and refine it. Puff. Dragon Vein Xiaohua didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly spat a mouthful of dragon chi on the Panga's axe. Soon after, he chanted the heavenly dragon technique. However, in a moment, the Panga's axe jumped a few times and fell down again. There were no other changes. Not good. That guy is coming. Xiaohua was suddenly alarmed. He hurriedly shouted, fellow Taoist, if you can't take it, we'll leave right away. Little funnel, quickly take out little funnel. Green-robed Xiaohua suddenly shouted from the side. That thing has been refined with your blood essence. Perhaps it can be used. Yes. Xiaohua was currently like a patient seeking help. He took out little funnel without hesitation. Sure enough, little funnel fell below the Panga's axe and just happened to take it in. Then, Dragon Vein Xiaohua's dragon chi landed on little funnel and immediately took little funnel along with the Panga's axe into his body. It was also at this moment that an extremely dim fluctuation flashed by. Di Ting and the heaven-devouring beast's figures appeared above the 3 people's heads. The heaven-devouring beast's gloomy voice sounded, little thing, quickly take out the Panga's axe. This thing isn't something you can have. Xiaohua's eyes slightly narrowed. He looked indifferently at the heaven-devouring beast and said with a smile, Senior, which eye of yours saw this junior take out the Panga's axe? There's the aura of the Panga's axe here. The heaven-devouring beast simply didn't allow Xiaohua to explain and said, moreover, there are no other strange beasts within 1,000 li. If you didn't take it, where would the Panga's axe go? Quickly take it out. Otherwise, I'll kill you right now. He. Xiaohua laughed coldly. It was this junior who took away the Panga's axe. What's wrong? Something that has fallen into this Zhao's hands. Even immortals can forget about taking it away from this Zhao. If you want to take it, then take out some real ability and snatch it from this Zhao's hands. Otherwise, don't even think about it. Damn it. The heaven-devouring beast was furious. Black gas splashed out from its body and a powerful aura quickly enveloped Xiaohua. Xiaohua slapped the top of his head and several streams of true energy spurted out. A big hand also appeared in the aura. The Di Ting was happy at first, but after a moment he hesitated. Seeing Xiaohua's big hand shatter in the heaven-devouring beast's aura, and Xiaohua was about to activate his divine ability, the Di Ting hurriedly said, Heaven-devouring beast. What? The heaven-devouring beast said impatiently. Scram to the side first. Wait until I crush this little ant to death. Then I'll go with you. At this point, the heaven-devouring beast seemed to have thought of something. Its eyes flickered and that murderous aura also stopped. Little thing, what's this formless soul of yours? It looks interesting. As the Diting spoke, a Buddhist light appeared from its ear and landed behind the heaven-devouring beast. The formless nascent soul formed a seal with both hands and revealed its figure with an expression of disbelief. Ah, what's this? At this moment, the heaven-devouring beast noticed the green-robed Xiaohua. The heaven-devouring beast was shocked. Its figure flashed and hid to the side. With its strength, it actually didn't notice how the green-robed Xiaohua went over. If the green-robed Xiaohua attacked, the heavily injured heaven-devouring beast would definitely suffer a great loss. Xiaohua's face also carried some shame and anger. He said coldly, "That's I's formless nascent soul. What's wrong? Senior, are you interested?" Chapter 42-41. Formless Nascent Soul? Diting slightly frowns as if he is thinking. After a moment, he looks at the heaven-swallowing beast as if asking, "Heaven-swallowing beast, I seem to have some impression. There seems to be a very small world under the great desolate world. The humans in this world call themselves immortals, right? How would I know about the matters of the human race?" The heaven-swallowing beast is on guard while saying coldly, "My Lord Dragon God is not a human. Only your Buddha Lord knows about the matters of the human race, right?" Diting nods. "Although my Buddha Lord is a human, his cultivation method is different from that of the human race. I don't know much about it. However, I vaguely heard that there are many worlds under the immortal world. In those lowly worlds, there are very few humans who cultivate nascent soul." Ah? Xiaohua is stunned and says in surprise, "Senior, what are you talking about? How come I don't understand? How did you come here?" Diting doesn't explain to him and suddenly asks, "Answer immediately." Junior took advantage of the teleportation array to go to the hidden immortal continent to train. Suddenly, the teleportation channel collapsed. Junior fell into the void and then fainted. "When I woke up, I bumped into a mountain. Xiaohua's spring and autumn brush is more proficient than Yabai." He says it without hesitation. Then Junior saw the stone giant, then no need to say any more. Diting waves his hand and asks again, "You just said that the things you obtained are things that even immortals can't snatch away. Have you seen immortals?" Immortals? That is Junior's cultivation goal. Xiaohua's eyes are filled with infinite longing. He says anxiously, "Could it be that Senior has seen immortals? Oh, Senior. Could it be that you are an immortal bird? You don't need to know our origin." Diting doesn't answer Xiaohua's question at all. He turns to the heaven-swallowing beast and says, "Did you hear that? This little guy is really an ant. Even if that pango axe is placed in front of him, he can't pick it up. Don't forget, that day, this little guy's clone held pango axe, but he couldn't touch it at all. Is that so?" The heaven-swallowing beast already understands what Diting is talking about. However, he can't be sure whether Phoenix Body Xiaohua has touched pango axe or not. Xiaohua was even more bewildered, and he asked curiously, "Senior? My clone did not touch the pango axe at that time. But why couldn't he touch it? I can see it with my eyes, but I can't sense it with my divine sense." Ha ha ha! The Harkin burst into laughter. Divine artifacts can only be used by existences from the great desolate realm of the gods. You are not from the great desolate realm of the gods, so how can you possibly use them? What's more, this pango axe is only a divine shell. It's not complete at all. It's even more impossible for you humans to touch it. Shut up. The heaven-devouring beast was enraged. Even if it's a divine shell, it's still Panga's axe. Hee. I didn't say that it wasn't the pango axe. The Harkin laughed. Actually, I was just bluffing this little guy. That clone of his didn't even come into contact with the pango axe. If he admitted it, it would mean that he knew that he couldn't pick up the pango axe. That would also mean that he had seen the pango axe before. But what he just said clearly he didn't know. The heaven-devouring beast obviously didn't think as much as the Harkin. It was a little stunned. In the end, it could only ask, "The Harkin, so you think that he didn't take the pango axe?" And yes. The Harkin replied without hesitation. "Then what is he doing here?" "Oh yes, little guy, what are you doing here?" The Harkin also turned to ask Xiaohua. It's like this. Xiaohua's mood was very good at this time. He smiled and said. Junior saw that the seal in the sky was ineffective, so I asked a few of my fellow Taoists to go underground and see where the innate heavy water could seep to. It would also be good for us to return to the stone giants and let them find a place to stay. After saying that, he pointed at the strange seal and said, Junior's fellow Taoists saw that there was a strange seal here, so he asked me to come and take a look, and the Harkin had already seen this broken seal. So it didn't care. It asked, Then do you have any countermeasures now? Xiaohua smiled bitterly, shrugged and said, What else can I do? Dig a deep hole and accumulate more food. What? What does this mean? The Harkin and the heaven-swallowing beast were stunned. Wherever the innate true water goes, the mountains will collapse and the earth will split. It can destroy everything, and nothing will be born. Xiaohua explained. But the innate true water is not easy to seep into the ground. The stone giants can dig a hole under the ground. As long as the entrance is sealed and not let the innate heavy water seep in, they should be able to survive. What about accumulating food? The Harkin was very curious. Us humans eat food. Without food, we can't survive. The stone giants eat fire elemental primordial stones, so they have to accumulate a lot of primordial stones. Before the innate heavy water falls, they will rely on these primordial stones to survive. Sighed the heaven-swallowing beast sighed. What you said might be reasonable, but it's just like how you sealed the sky earlier. It's only a temporary measure. Once the entire primeval continent is destroyed and the ground is filled with natural heavy water, how long can your so-called seal last? Is there that much innate heavy water? Xiaohua asked meaningfully. Why not? The heaven-swallowing beast said without hesitation. The water elemental energy in the prehistoric continent has already disappeared by millions. Cough, cough. The Harkin coughed, and the heaven-swallowing beast also woke up. However, since it had already said that, it still continued. After accumulating so much water elemental energy for so many years, why can't it drown the entire prehistoric continent? Seniors, do you really not know who it is? Xiaohua couldn't help but ask again. We don't know. The Harkin and the heaven-swallowing beast replied. Forget it, Xiaohua said helplessly. We'll save as many as we can and hold on for as long as we can. After saying that, Xiaohua waved at the dragon gates. Xiaohua. The two of them, together with the green-robed Xiaohua, prepared to leave. Where are you going? The Harkin suddenly asked. Senior, you can clearly see what this junior has done. Xiaohua didn't even turn his head as he replied. Junior isn't willing to let them be destroyed just like this after they've just gained intelligence. By the time you return, they will have already turned into powder. The Harkin sneered and said, We'll go with you. Seniors? Xiaohua was a little stunned. Only now did he understand that the two strange beasts didn't come just for the Pangu axe. Don't resist, the Harkin ordered indifferently. Xiaohua only felt a stream of light flash in front of his eyes, and his whole body floated. In just the time it took to eat a meal, the light in front of Xiaohua's eyes disappeared. When his body sank, what appeared in front of him was the mountain peak he had crashed into. Damn it, when Xiaohua saw the mountain peak, he immediately thought of something. How does this old thing know everything? Could it be that he also knows about the teleportation array? Of course, Xiaohua wouldn't ask too much. When he was about to instruct the dragon vein Xiaohua, he was suddenly stunned again, because the heaven-swallowing beast, who had already disappeared when he flew up to fight for the Pangu axe, was now standing not far from him. Thinking that he had hurriedly collected the sky-soaring vine and didn't look for the heaven-swallowing beast, Xiaohua was a little embarrassed and hurriedly asked, Heaven-swallowing beast, why are you here? Heaven-swallowing beast? The heaven-swallowing beast at the side was stunned. The heaven-swallowing beast scratched its head and answered honestly, Taoist, I don't know, it's me. The Harkin replied faintly, I met him on the way, so I brought him back as well. Great-grandfather, the heaven-swallowing beast respectfully bowed to the Harkin. Good grandson of the heaven-swallowing beast, the Harkin proudly patted the heaven-swallowing beast's head and slightly slanted his eyes to look at the heaven-swallowing beast's face, which was green and red, and said with a smile, You can stay here with great-grandfather. With great-grandfather here, you definitely won't suffer. The Harkin, the heaven-swallowing beast, was a little embarrassed and angry. Why did you name him Heaven-swallowing beast? The Harkin had an innocent face and replied, Heaven-swallowing beast, you're mistaken. This little guy can eat, and it's said that he can even eat the sky, so he's called Heaven-swallowing beast. This name wasn't given by me. You, the heaven-swallowing beast was fuming with anger, but he didn't know how to refute the Harkin. Only the heaven-swallowing beast stood beside the proud Harkin in bewilderment. Xiaohua didn't have the time to say anything to the two strange beasts. He brought the dragon vein Xiaohua, and the green-robed Xiaohua high up in the sky. Wherever his divine sense passed, there was no change in the sky, not even a single dark cloud could be seen. However, Xiaohua's sharp senses had already discovered that there were slight changes in the water element origin energy. Presumably, the changes in the heaven-connecting peak had already affected the entire desolate mainland. Although he couldn't see the collapsing sky and the world-destroying innate heavy water, the curtain of the heaven-connecting peak had already been lifted. However, the prelude to destruction had already been lifted by an invisible hand. Death was only a matter of time. Xiaohua didn't dare to be negligent. He took out the Kunlun mirror and summoned the Fortune Gate's disciples. He roughly explained what had happened and said, This old man can once again guarantee that the innate heavy water won't have any effect on this old man, and you're definitely not in any danger. However, the desolate mainland has already been enlightened. Xiaohua suddenly came to a realization, and slapped his forehead. He said regretfully, Fuck, this old man is really stupid. I was thinking about how to seal the collapsing sky, and completely forgot about taking drastic measures to deal with the situation. You will all set out and go to various places. Take all the spatial rings and universe bags. If you can take them, take them. If you can't take them, then tell them that this old man wants them to dig a hole in the ground and hide them there. This old man will discuss with your martial uncles to take them into the Kunlun immortal realm. Oh right, all of you don't have to fly too far. If you see the sky collapsing or the innate heavy water falling down, quickly turn back. Yes. The group of disciples didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly flew to various places according to the previous arrangements. Chapter 42-42. After the group of disciples left, Xiaohua summoned his clones. He raised his hand and patted the Kunlun mirror. The Kunlun mirror split into several copies. With a wave of his hand, the real Kunlun mirror and the fake Kunlun mirror fell into the hands of everyone. Then Xiaohua transmitted his voice. Fellow Taoists, the situation is urgent. This poor Taoist will not say much. The Kunlun mirror of the Confucian Taoist is real. The Kunlun mirrors of the other fellow cultivators are all fake. You also have Qingquan bags, longbei, and other items. You've collected all of them. As for those that you can't collect, it depends on your cultivation. Since you can enter and exit the space freely, you must have the ability to put things in it. You've also collected all of them. Of course, there may be some fellow Taoists who can't do it for the time being. Fellow Taoists, for the sake of the creatures of the primitive continent, fellow Taoists, have worked hard. Yes, we understand. After Xiaohua finished speaking, the clones all left. Except for Xiaohua, the other clones flew around and tried to understand their relationship with the space. They tried their best to sense the position of the space, so that they could take in the beasts before the innate heavy water fell. The sky collapsed and the innate heavy water fell in an instant. Xiaohua was only a Mahayana human cultivator. How many creatures of the primitive continent could he save? Even if he had the space to rely on, how many creatures had he rescued in the entire Eldritch continent? His strength could only be a drop in the bucket in front of the power of heaven and earth. Moreover, Xiaohua went to the primitive continent and taught the primitive continent. He had already gained the merit of teaching. Xiaohua, a Confucian cultivator, had stepped into the literary star. At this time, even if Xiaohua didn't do anything, this merit had already been realized. If it was other utilitarian cultivators, they would inevitably care about themselves and no longer care about these low-level creatures of the primitive continent that had nothing to do with them. However, Xiaohua was just this kind of merciful person. He didn't teach the untainted continent for the sake of teaching. He truly did want all living things to live as freely as he did, however. Heaven and earth were heartless and treated all living things like straw dogs. Even living such a simple life, in the eyes of some powerful beings, for their unknown purposes, was not easy to achieve. What Xiaohua wanted to fight for the billions of living beings in the primitive continent was that tiny chance of survival. After nearly 100 years of enlightenment, Xiaohua had already been regarded as a god by the stone giants, water and wind fishmen, golden armored men, wood men, earth giants, and other low-level prehistoric beasts. Therefore, when Xiaohua appeared, he didn't need to explain too much. In just a few words, the illusion of the Kunlun mirror waved, and Xiaohua brought them into a corner of the space. In this corner of space, Xiaohua had already built a place similar to the great desolate continent for them, so they wouldn't feel unfamiliar with it. Xiaohua didn't dare to delay any longer. Not only was there not enough time, he also had to consider for the green-robed Xiaohua and the others. He was afraid that if he was too far away from his clones, they wouldn't be able to sense his space. However, the green-robed Xiaohua and the other clones were flying in all directions. It was not suitable for Xiaohua to fly to any place. Thus, he could only teleport while sensing everything in the surrounding space. For several days, other than the strange beasts that Xiaohua had brought into the space, no other strange beasts had entered the space. Xiaohua felt a chill in his heart. He knew that the green-robed Xiaohua and the others didn't have the ability to send things into the space. In these few days, the distance that his clones had flown out had probably exceeded the range of his consciousness. It was even more impossible for them to sense his space. Forget it. Xiaohua comforted himself. They have a universe bag in their hands. I'll just take as much as I can. Subsequently, Xiaohua no longer thought about it. He urged his body to fly in a certain direction. Whenever he found a low-level prehistoric beast, he would immediately put it into the space. Whenever he found a Fortune Gate disciple returning, he would immediately take their universe bag or spatial ring and send them out to continue searching for strange beasts. This continued for more than 10 days. Suddenly, Xiaohua's heart stirred. His mind hastily entered the space. He saw a stone giant with faint dragon patterns on its body standing high up in the sky. It was looking all around in a baffled manner. Good Xiaohua was overjoyed. He didn't bother to identify which clone had sent this stone giant. With a wave of his hand, he sent this stone giant to where the strange beasts were. Since there was a first, there would naturally be a second. In the following few months, a steady stream of strange beasts were sent into the space by his clones. While Xiaohua was collecting strange beasts, he was also making arrangements for these strange beasts at the same time. On this day, Xiaohua had just finished arranging for a batch of strange beasts to be sent over. His consciousness left the space, but before he could fly away, boom boom boom, a rumbling sound, like the muffled thunder before a storm, resounded in the sky. These days, Xiaohua had been busy saving strange beasts, so he didn't look at the sky. When he heard the rumbling thunder, he was startled. He hurriedly raised his head and saw that the distant horizon had been dyed blue and gray. Although the blue and gray colors looked very beautiful, under those colors, the falling Xiantian heavy water emitted a world-destroying aura. Alas, Xiaohua sighed. He turned his head to look in the opposite direction of the sky and said in a low voice, "In the end it still came." Before his voice fell, a kind of grief and indignation suddenly appeared in Xiaohua's heart. An indescribable emotion blocked his chest. He couldn't help but look up to the sky and roar, as if he was venting. That unyielding voice resounded between heaven and earth, resisting the rumbling thunder of the sky. "Heavenly Tao, I have cultivated for so long, why is my strength still so weak? Why can't you give me the power to overturn the heavens? I have the power to overturn the heavens. I will definitely save the lives of the billions of creatures in the wilderness. I will definitely open a path to the heavens for them." Unfortunately, Xiaohua's sorrowful voice drifted between the heavens and the earth, but in just a moment, it was drowned out by the sound of the sky collapsing. In this world, there was no such thing as a free lunch that fell out of thin air. Xiaohua's lofty aspirations moved the heavens and the earth, but without difficult cultivation. Any words were just empty words. When heaven and earth are in trouble, all living things are destroyed. The spirit of the wilderness led me to the continent. With the 7-foot body of the human race and the unyielding backbone of 10,000 years, I will leave behind the seedlings of the wilderness and prolong the offspring of the strange beasts. After Xiaohua finished venting, he knew that he didn't have much time left. He chanted and didn't dare to stay any longer, flying in a certain direction. When he flew up, the same voice came out from his body. When heaven and earth are virtuous, the green robe descends to the world, using great strength to defeat the enemy, using great power to save the world. If such a green robe can't become an immortal, who can? Huh? Xiaohua was surprised. Seeing the green robe Xiaohua flying out while singing a song, he asked, "How did you?" However, Xiaohua smiled. Since the green robe Xiaohua and the other clones could sense their own space and send in the strange beasts, they could also enter the space. Wasn't it normal for the green robe to come out from the space? The green robe Xiaohua smiled and said, "The direction I went was the direction of the sky connecting peak. There is already Xiantian heavy water there. I had already sent the educated strange beasts into the space. As for those uneducated beasts, they didn't listen to I, so I couldn't send them into the space. Therefore, after I sent the Fortune Gate's disciples in that direction into the space, I came over myself." Good Xiaohua clapped his hands and said, "So other fellow Taoists can come over at any time, and the Fortune Gate's disciples can also be sent over. Other than the pitiful fellow Taoist Longmai, everyone else can." The green robe Xiaohua smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist should give the Kunlun mirror to fellow Taoist Longmai." "It doesn't matter." Xiaohua smiled and said, "He is a dragon. How could he be afraid of water?" "Fellow Taoist, summon the Fortune Gate's disciples. We will continue to work hard." The green robe Xiaohua flew with Xiaohua for a while and said, "Maybe we can save more strange beasts before the storm arrives." "Storm?" Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and looked meaningfully at the green robe Xiaohua. He nodded and said, "Fellow Taoist is right. We will continue to work hard." Subsequently, Xiaohua summoned the Fortune Gate's disciples, and everyone continued to fly in the same direction. In the sky above a mountain peak, Truth Listener and the heaven-devouring beast were looking in Xiaohua's direction from a distance. In this direction, the torrential rain had already fallen. Countless mountains and boulders collapsed under the impact of the connate heavy water. Similarly, under the heavy rain, not to mention all the vegetation being corroded by the heavy water, many primordial beasts that did not know the truth were desperately fleeing. Some of the stronger primordial beasts were fine as they had some light around them that could temporarily resist the connate true water. Most of the strange beasts that were fleeing were low-level strange beasts that did not have much intelligence. When their bodies came in contact with the heavy water, other than some simple resistance, their flesh was corroded by the heavy water, and there were even deep bloody holes smashed by the heavy water. They fell to the ground and let out mournful screams, but these screams only lasted for a few times before disappearing. The strange beasts were either corpses riddled with holes, or bones dripping with blood and flesh after being corroded. However, this miserable scene disappeared in a few breaths of time. Under the innate heavy water, not to mention blood and bones, even mountains and rocks would melt. Di Ting, facing the horrifying scene, the heaven-devouring beast did not frown at all. He only transmitted his voice to Di Ting. "This little guy looks a little strange. He really seems to be saving those low-level strange beasts." Di Ting coldly replied, "Heaven-devouring beast, you don't understand the human race's cultivation at all. This little guy looks like he's saving the strange beasts, but in reality, he's accumulating merit points for himself. The more he saves, the more merit points he gets, and the faster his strength will grow. Do you think he has the leisure to do this kind of boring thing?" The heaven-devouring beast laughed, and the black demonic clouds around him flickered rapidly as he said, "So your Buddha Lord used to be like this in the past." Chapter 42-43. Shut up. At the mention of Jiang Luer's past life, Di Ting flew into a rage and scolded, "How can this fame-seeking thing be compared to my Buddha Lord? My Buddha Lord is the real Maitreya Buddha. What is he?" But if it's as you say, the sky-devouring beast's words were not without provocation. This little guy has accumulated so much merit that his Buddhist clone will sooner or later snatch away the Buddha's light that belongs to the Maitreya Buddha. Di Ting snorted and said fiercely, "If I didn't need to keep this guy as bait, I would have torn him apart and eaten him." "That's strange too." The sky-devouring beast looked up at the falling rain and said curiously, It's been a few months and 40% of the entire Eldritch continent has been destroyed. Why hasn't the mastermind appeared yet? Does he really want to destroy the world? What good will it do him if all the living beings in the Eldritch continent are killed? How would I know? Ting gritted his teeth again and said, I've been wise all my life, but I've been schemed against by the mastermind before I die. I'm afraid some of the karma for the destruction of the world will fall on my head. At this point, Ting looked at the sky-devouring beast and said, Don't be so smug. If I have 30%, you have to take 30%. The sky-devouring beast wagged its tail and said with a smile, I'm not a Buddhist disciple, so I don't care about this. If you say this to this little guy, it's more like it, SSS. At this point, the sky-devouring beast suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air and stood up abruptly. The sky-devouring beast's movements attracted Ting's attention at the same time. Ting hurriedly retreated and looked at the sky-devouring beast vigilantly. Ting the sky-devouring beast stared in Xiaohua's direction for a long time and said, Do you think this little guy is the mastermind? What he did in front of us was all an act. How is that possible? Ting said with extreme disdain, I know that this guy has been in the Eldritch continent since he came. His every move is under my surveillance, hee. The heaven-devouring beast laughed coldly and retorted, If I'm not wrong, then this little fellow vanished before our eyes for a period of time before Heaven Link Peak. The Harkon's aura grew cold, and even the connate heavy water that filled the sky began to show signs of freezing. Could it be that everything about this little fellow is just a disguise? Even the strength he displayed was fake? Who knows? At this moment, the heaven-devouring beast's aura slackened as it said lazily, I'm not the truth listener beast who has searched all 6 realms. Naturally, I wouldn't know about this. Damn it. Truth listener was already extremely resentful toward Xiaohua. Now that it heard such a possibility, it became even more furious. It cursed 3 times in a row. If it wasn't for the fact that it was seriously injured, it would have flown over to kill Xiaohua long ago, right? At this moment, Xiaohua was not in the mood to pay attention to the guesses of the 2 strange beasts. He was racing against time to compete with the collapsing sky. He wanted to save more untainted creatures before the apocalypse arrived. In the blink of an eye, dozens of days passed. The collapsing sky increased in size and speed as time passed. In the end, it was as if a flood was pouring down from the sky. The real flood fell from the sky, passing over the flying figures of Xiaohua and the other Fortune Gate disciples, drowning the land full of vitality in death. Sigh. Xiaohua's figure stopped in the rain. He looked at the collapsing sky above his head and sighed. What should come, will come eventually. I want to understand the law of time. I really want to stop time at this moment. Time cannot be stopped. The green-robed Xiaohua said indifferently beside Xiaohua. Moreover, this is an untainted land surrounded by the turbulence of time. We have already tried our best. There shouldn't be any more regrets. Except for the dragon vein, Xiaohua's other avatars had already returned through space. At this time, the scholarly cultivator Xiaohua comforted Xiaohua with a trace of regret in his voice. Xiaohua didn't look back. He just looked into the distance with compassion and didn't speak for a long time. The bone-honing Xiaohua was a little embarrassed. He grinned and said, Haha, only in times of crisis can one's potential be unearthed. If it was normal, I don't know when I would be able to sense Shenhua continent. I don't know when I would be able to enter Shenhua continent. This is only a small step in our cultivation. It's nothing to be proud of. Xiaohua replied indifferently. He then asked, Fellow Taoist Xiaohua, when you see these creatures being strangled in the innate heavy water, don't you feel sorrow? Yes. Why not? The bone-honing Xiaohua grinned. But looking at his grin, how was it sorrow? Tanyu, Buddha Bodhi, who had become less talkative after arriving at the desolate land, opened his mouth. Let's go take a look and save as many as we can. After all, saving a life is better than building a 7-storied pagoda. Xiaohua's heart was already filled with grief and indignation. When he heard the word stupa from Buddha Subhudi's mouth, he felt a burst of disgust for no reason. He glanced at Buddha Subhudi indifferently, nodded and said, That's right. For the sake of merit, we have to go forward. Xiaohua emphasized the word merit. Others might not be able to hear it, but Buddha Subhuti naturally understood. Seeing Xiaohua flying forward without even turning his head, Buddha Subhuti chanted, Namo Maitreya Buddha, with a miserable expression on his face. Holding up the sky with one hand had always been a divine ability of almighty beings. Xiaohua wasn't considered an almighty at this time. Therefore, even if he wanted to do a lot, what he could achieve was pitifully little. After searching for more than 10 days, he saw the vast flood on the ground. Everything was clear and bright, and the world was filled with the aura of the innate heavy water. Xiaohua had no choice but to give up again. He put all his clones back into his body and turned to fly back. At this point, Xiaohua no longer had any superfluous thoughts. He had to make plans for himself. If the innate heavy water continued to fall, the entire untainted continent would be covered by the innate heavy water. Xiaohua had to make plans for himself. It was also at this time that a whale came from afar. A primitive variant beast bobbed up and down in the innate heavy water. The brilliance around its body disappeared, and its corpse fell to the bottom of the water and disappeared. Buddha Bodhi was slightly taken aback. He said with some surprise, "It's strange. The soul of this primitive variant beast. Why didn't it come out?" "Is that so?" Xiaohua raised his eyebrows. He was also puzzled. His consciousness swept in that direction. As expected, it was empty. Destroy the world. Destroy the world. Destroy the world. Xiaohua suddenly looked like he was struck by lightning. He stood there blankly and muttered to himself. Destroy the world for what? Could it be for the souls of billions of creatures? At this time, Xiaohua threw away the grudge he had with Buddha Bodhi and shouted, "Follow this old man to another place to take a look." "Yes." Buddha Bodhi responded and flew in the direction of the flood. Another dozen days passed. Xiaohua brought his clones to many places. Without exception, all of these places were flooded by the innate heavy water. Moreover, without exception, no soul managed to escape. However, Xiaohua couldn't be sure that the goal of this disaster was the souls of billions of creatures in the primitive continent, because the chances of the primitive variant beasts being killed by the innate heavy water were too few. Xiaohua couldn't watch as any creatures were killed by the innate heavy water in front of him for no reason. Therefore, although no souls appeared when the innate heavy water fell, it could also mean that the souls had returned to the 9 underworlds. "Grandmaster, I'm afraid you're thinking too much." Green-robed Xiaohua was somewhat disapproving. He looked at the flood and said, "Presumably, those souls have already entered the cycle of reincarnation." "I think that it's normal that no souls appeared." Xiaohua nodded faintly. Green-robed Taoist is right. "I think so too." "Namo Maitreya Buddha." Buddha Bodhi didn't argue and said, "I hope this poor monk is thinking too much. Why hasn't Taoist Longmai returned yet?" Xiaohua didn't want to talk to Buddha Bodhi anymore and changed the topic. Green-robed Xiaohua said with a smile, "Yes, could it be that this guy encountered another disaster? Could it be that we have to go to Chaotian Tower again? The primitive continent has already been covered by the flood. If there are no accidents, Chaotian Tower will no longer exist." Phoenix Body Xiaohua replied with some melancholy. "Taoist Longmai shouldn't have a problem." Bonehone Xiaohua said with a smile. "Now that it's raining heavily, other primitive variant beasts can't even hide. Who would find trouble with a 5-clawed true dragon? Let's go. We'll go in the direction of Taoist Longmai to welcome him." Xiaohua leaped into the sky and said faintly, "Now that you have nothing to do, you might as well go back and rest." Immediately after, the group of clones returned to Xiaohua's body. Xiaohua flew in the direction pointed by Confucian cultivator Xiaohua. Along the way, Xiaohua paid attention again. From time to time, he would open his illusion breaker eye and pay attention to the matter of souls. After flying for more than 10 days, he didn't see any lingering souls. Only then did Xiaohua gradually let down his guard. On this day, he really flew to a place where Xiaohua couldn't distinguish the direction. A familiar yuan will swept across the sky from afar. Xiaohua knew that this was Dragon Vein Xiaohua returning. He was overjoyed and flew towards the sky to welcome him. Daoist, seeing that Dragon Vein Xiaohua had some scars all over his body and some damage on his scales, Xiaohua asked in surprise, "What happened to you?" Dragon Vein Xiaohua didn't answer Xiaohua's question. Instead, he raised his hand and pointed to the sky. "Daoist, take a look. Is there anything strange there?" "That place." Xiaohua was stunned. He looked towards the place where Dragon Vein Xiaohua's dragon claw was pointing. He saw that in the sky, there seemed to be a torrential downpour of innate heavy water. Above the innate heavy water, there was a gray and azure sky. At the end of this variegated sky, a slightly pale sun was powerlessly looking at all the tragedies on the ground. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.